Oh, you wanted ASMR? How's this for ASMR? Does this make you have tingly feeling?
A little bit, yeah.
Shoulders.
Yeah, not gonna lie.
I don't. Something about ASMR that just like doesn't do it for me, you know?
All right, this one is I've been tentatively titling it ASMRio.
Oh, yeah.
It's a me, Mario.
No, no.
Yahoo! Yippee! Wahoo!
Oh my god.
Here we go.
Oh god. I feel like exhausted after that. I'm like physically tired. Oh god. I don't like know what to do with myself now that has entered my brain.
Now that we've peaked.
Now that we've peaked, yeah, there's really nowhere else for us to go up. We've done it. We've reached the peak of content. There's nothing better than that.
Much like the show Coffee Prince, which finally gave us the kiss we've been building up to for 10 episodes. Where do you go from here?
Oh my god, yes, it did. We did it. We made it. We're here now. There's no going back. Or maybe there is. Who knows what'll happen.
Don't you put that on me, Kara. Don't you put that on me.
Hey, speaking of episode 11 and things that might potentially happen in it, Jaren, what do you think is going to happen in episode 11? What's your prediction?
I'm so glad you asked.
What's your prediction? Oh god, I hate it. I'm so sorry I did that.
So the forecast for next episode.
Yes.
I think that Gyul is they're going to do a flashback where they show that when Gyul whipped out of that stoplight, he actually went and visited his grandma really quick and had a long conversation with her and got a ring. And then we're going to cut back to present time, and he's going to pull that ring out of a little Lego box that he made.
Oh my god.
And he's going to say, "Unchan, will you marry me?" And Unchan's going to say, "Well, I'm so glad you said if I was a man or an alien." And then she's going to take her head off, and she's going to be a goopy green tentacle alien. And then he's going to slide the ring on one of her tentacles, and they are going to have a gay alien wedding.
That's so cute. Oh my god. You know what, Jaren? I'm honestly really impressed because you literally just described the rest of this show word for word.
Yosh.
Wow. Holy. How did you do that?
Oh, I looked at the Wikipedia. I haven't made an honest prediction since episode 3.
You were like, I really need to step up my game.
You're like, it's more important to be right than it is to enjoy the show organically.
Oh, so if that's what happens with Gyul and Unchan, what happens with Han Sung and like Yoo-Ju?
See, we're gonna find out that all these plots converge around the alien invasion, a la 1976 Body Snatchers, and we're gonna find out that DK was in fact an alien primate from another planet, and he's going to kidnap Yoo-Ju and run to the top of the highest building in Seoul, and
oh my god,
Han Sung is going to have to hop over barrels and art on his way up there.
Wow.
Same thing with Sun Gi. His child, half alien. That's where the drama comes from.
Oh my god. So, was Sun Gi an alien or was the mom an alien?
The mom was, and that's why she had to go. His memory was supposed to be wiped, but they failed.
Oh no. What about CB and Unsei?
Oh, Unsei got abducted and a mind control implant put into her. So that's why she suddenly changed her attitude towards CB.
Wait, so Unsei isn't an alien too?
No, there was an original Unchan that's been replaced by the alien Unchan somewhere around episode 5, I think. And
wow, that's insane. Wow, what a prediction. Honestly, I see no better route for this show to go. I really think that if they want this show to be as good as it can, that's what they have to do.
Yeah, and if anybody needs to contact me through my professional IMDb page for help with their latest screenplay, I am currently commissions open. I'm free for whatever.
All right, you heard it. You heard it first. You heard it. Hold on. How do you say that? You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, Kara,
Okay.
your alien programming is breaking down.
I mean,
Our mission to analyze human romantic relationships through the lens of television.
Wow, this is so weird. Suddenly I love ASMR and I don't know why. All right. Without further ado, let's get into the juice.
Excellent.
Episode 11.
Episode 11. We've
Not
got the
episode
juice.
7. Oh. That's a good scene.
Thanks.
Did you hear what I said? Because we said it at the same time.
Oh, you said episode 11. We're in heaven?
No, I said episode 11. It's not episode 7.
Oh, technically the truth.
Yeah, right? I figured we might as well keep it honest with the audiences. We don't want them to think we're lying to them.
We don't want them to think we're some kind of extraterrestrial intel gathering outfit disguised as a podcast.
That'd be so funny. Anyway, I think we've said too much, so let's go.
Comfortably too much.
Hey guys, I'm Kara, and gosh, I do love rom-coms.
Hey, I'm Jaren, and I love me some illegal street racing.
Oh, but you know what we're both into? Hot drinks and hot boys.
And this is
Just kiss already. Please? Guys, just like, come on. Just a little, come on.
Just kiss. I wish Arthur Weasley could have been in this episode of Coffee Prince.
I wish Arthur Weasley could have been in this episode of... You know what? I wish Arthur Weasley was in more media in general. I feel like it'd just be a fun thing to have him appearing just like everything you're watching.
I would pay to have him follow me around my house and just repeatedly ask, what is the function of blank? And just point to some random knickknack or something.
Aw, that'd be so cute. And that is the cute that we would have needed.
Oh, yeah.
This go around.
Ooh. It was a dearth of cute. There was a little bit of cute, but like they really made you dig for it.
Yeah. In case it wasn't clear, we're back and we watched episode 11. And remember how last episode we were so excited because it was the episode and there was like a cool kiss and like everything was great? Well, get ready for episode 11, aka all that goes to shit. You couldn't, come on, you had to see that coming. Come on.
Listen, I wanted to believe that this was the one time they didn't bait and switch. They didn't like just disregard everything that happened. But effectively, they might as well have.
Yeah, it did. I remember how last time I kept being like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious, like every time I see Harem. Yeah, so that was not about him finding out the secret. It was about what he does this episode.
That boy.
I remember,
misguided boy.
Oh my god, on my first watching, I remember feeling like everything happened so fast. Because I'm more of a binge watcher than like a watch every once in a while. So I watched episode 11 right after episode 10. So it felt like in a span of like 5 minutes, everything had laid on the line.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into talking about what the heck happened this episode.
Jeez.
So last episode ended on like a really cool high note. We had like this cool admission of feelings, and there was like the line where he was like, if you're a boy or if you're an alien, I don't care. I like you and we're gonna do it. And I was like, heck yeah. And Jaren was like, heck yeah. And we start this episode off on a really high note too, because it's like they're both home. Unchan is at her house and Hangyul is in his apartment and they're on the phone and they're being really cute, being like, oh, just making sure you got home and oh, I miss you already, and like, oh, and it's very cute.
Yeah, as far as high notes go, this is like soprano C, top shelf, glass shattering, like good times are had by all.
It was a very good way to start this episode after last episode. Like, I'm really glad that we went right into like, no, that actually happened, and everything is great.
Unchan is so precious because he's like, I miss you, and she's like, we only just like broke off from each other. God, me too. Like, it's really well delivered.
She's like, I should go to sleep and hang up. And Hangil is trying to do the like, no, let's like keep talking on the phone for a little longer. And she's like, okay. And then like a couple seconds later, she's like, no, I gotta hang up. I can't do this.
Yeah, she starts like tapping her chest, and I'm like, oh, she's got the Doki Doki.
Yeah.
And she lies.
Her heart
She's
is
like,
bumping off the charts.
I think I hear my mom calling me. And then she like hangs up.
A really classic.
They do have like a cute exchange where he's like, this is gonna be great. Like, we're gonna be able to work without being passive aggressive or arguing with each other for once. This is awesome.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She's like, so we're not gonna like argue and we're gonna like have fun? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, man, I wish.
That's the show I want.
If this episode had just been like, we're just gonna hang out and have fun and like it's gonna be like everything's gonna be good. Wow. Would have been great. Probably wouldn't have been what should happen because yeah, there still are a lot of loose ends untied, but I would have liked it regardless.
I will say in advance of the rest of this episode that like the reincorporation of these like loose plot threads, it's really good. Like, it's all actually weaving together and none of them are kind of dead ending.
Yeah, definitely.
It's weird to be so satisfied by like no resolution, but just little more pieces of information each time that you see these people.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's something that this show does pretty well. I feel like the slow feed of information and the slow kind of like, I don't know, it feels like everything happens at a good pace, I think.
That's right. I think that's what we would call that, pacing.
Like, everything oftentimes feels like it happens very fast because a lot of things happen in one episode and things tend to happen like right after one another, but it still feels paced very well. Yes. I think they make good use of the like break time between when something really big and important happens.
This episode, more so than the others, really had a thematic consistency. And this isn't my episode title, but it was almost going to be, and I was almost ready to call this episode like Heart's Direction, because that is a super interesting concept that gets introduced. It's introduced and elaborated on here, but I have a way better title that has to be said later.
Okay, good. So. Excellent. Well, we'll keep second place in mind, in our hearts. We'll keep it alive.
So Unchan activates Robo Unchan, my favorite character, returning at last.
That's right.
Well, I guess second favorite to Genji, if we're gonna keep with the canon consistent.
That's fair. I feel like my first favorite character, Genji. Second favorite character, Robo Unchan. Third favorite character, Sweeper. Yeah. And then maybe like Unchan gets to be on the list.
We should maybe do a tier list of Coffee Prince characters.
Oh yeah.
So she activates Robo Unchan and is like, I should tell him now's the time. And my first thought was like, oh shit, is she gonna be like, hey, I love you? Kind of forgetting the whole like secret cross-dressing subplot. More of a plot than a subplot.
Yeah.
And Robo Unchan kind of in response goes, like makes a little noise.
As she does.
She makes Robo Unchan say a couple cute things and then kisses it goodnight and then just kind of crawls into bed with Mama.
Yeah, she like goes to Mom for like a little bit of comfort, and Mom is like sleepy, but she's still like, what? And Unchan is like, I like him, and she's like, oh, okay, and she's also like, and I gotta tell him the truth, and Mom is like, there, and she's like half asleep.
Oh yeah, it was super cool to see her like resolve. She's like, I'm telling him tomorrow. Like, it's happening. Because I don't think we've ever come close to that before. There's been a lot of times where, like, you can tell she wanted to say something, but there was no, like, letting someone else know that this is what I plan to do. Which is usually a big step in making yourself do something you don't want to do. Secondhand accountability.
Yeah. Well... I'm like, I know that... anyway...
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
We're still in Cute Town. We have, like, a dress montage the next morning.
I'm so happy to be in Cute Town, but I can see the, like, plane ticket I have where the destination is no longer cute, very sad town. And I'm just, like, preparing myself mentally because we have to go there at some point. But we're still in Cute Town.
We're still doing it. There's nothing bad gonna happen. Unchan's trying on different dresses, and they're all very
That's
cute.
That's right. She's like, ooh, look at this shirt. Ooh, look at this dress. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And it's very sweet because it is very much like we know that she wants to tell him that she's like, surprise, I've been lying this whole time. I am actually girl.
Ooh.
But at the same time, it's also very evident that it's like she's really giddy about like the prospect of this relationship and knowing that like she likes somebody and they like her back, and it does also give that feeling of like she's kind of having fun being like, oh my god, I kind of like want to look cute when I do it, like that kind of thing, that like giddiness to, you know, look cute for the person that you like.
And we like smash cut to Gyul doing whatever the opposite of road rage is, because he is just beaming and like driving with the top down. It looks like somebody cuts him off and he kind of just like waves at them like, it's fine.
He's like, oh well. Oh, he is so happy. It's good to see him that happy.
It's good to see it.
We love to see it. Oh my god, I cannot like... This stress of what is going to happen in this episode is so bad. We're in Cute Town. We're in Cute Town. We have to stay in Cute Town.
We're in our car on the Cute Town Expressway.
Yes.
We see a billboard for It's No Longer Cute But Sad Town. And we're like, oh right, I gotta go there.
God.
But for now, we're still driving to the airport.
Yes, we're still driving and we're having a good time.
So what happens next is Gyul gets a call.
Yes.
And it's from somebody that he doesn't know, somebody who has his number, and he's like, oh, hey, who is this? And I think we cut from there, or we see that it's Second Papa is what I've loosely titled that character. Maybe his uncle.
Yeah, I keep calling him Dad Number 2.
Dad Number 2 and Second Papa.
Dad Number 2 and Second Papa. Ooh.
So he calls, and then we cut to Unsei just kind of like being a harbinger, and being like, hey.
What was that?
She's harbinging.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, it's kind of like an omen almost. Like, if you see a crow or something, it's supposed to be like a harbinger of bad things to come. Or vultures.
Oh, I've always said that word as harbinger.
Oh, I might be wrong.
Maybe because I might be wrong. I don't know which one of us is right. I guess because I was like, oh, because they're bringing a bad omen, or like, maybe that's what harm means.
I like that.
I don't know. My mind always said harbinger, but maybe it's harbinger.
So Unsei is bringing down the mood by being
she's
like...
harbinger.
She's kind of being like, hey, you're leaving in a dress. Are you sure
she's
about
like, are
that?
you crazy? Like, what are you doing? And Unchan is like, shut up.
Yeah, Unchan doesn't even like take a second to like... She's driving on her scooter and just kind of chanting to herself, it'll be fine, everything is gonna be fine for me because I'm Unchan. And she's like almost...
It's a good song, and I really wish that it would happen.
I believed her. I don't think she believed herself, but I was like, I'll have faith in Unchan that everything is going to be alright.
That's good. Yeah, I did write down like, oh yeah, that's right, like she tries to tell him straight away, because I did forget that happens. I forgot that like she makes that like promise to herself, and that she decides like, yes, I'm going to do it right now. So it's good to see her like, so I mean, like, not necessarily confident, but like pushing herself to do something because she knows that she needs to, and she knows that that's kind of like the right thing to do right now.
Yeah.
And it's also good to see her just like, I don't know, because she is happy, but she's like nervous, but it's like I can't tell if it's a good nervous. I don't know.
She's doing it to create a better future. So there's the underpinning feeling for her is hope that like they will get through this and have a good life together. which makes it all the more tragic, really. But
we're in Cute Town.
I'm kind of checking my bag at the Depression Airways desk, and
I've been like zooming in and out of the location on like the map on my phone, just kind of like thinking about what's gonna happen when we're there. Even though I know that we're in Cute Town right now, I just kind of keep looking at it.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking at like the pamphlet.
I'm checking the weather on my app along the plane's route, and I'm like, oh man, there's like a 10,000 mile an hour wind that's bringing a thunderstorm from the other continent, the continent of bad feelings, over to.
Why did we book this vacation to the continent of bad feelings in the first place?
It feels like a business trip. Like, boy, we don't want to go, but we need to sell these SSRIs. There's a huge market for them.
Of course.
Whew, so we cut to Grandma, Hung Yul's grandma, and his dad, and Grandma's eating ice cream, and they're just kind of sitting in the backyard with a lot of tension, and Grandma kind of goes, huh, they should be meeting up by about now.
Yeah, it's like a cool, big, vague, like,
I think they might have used his name before in passing, but they call him Lee Myung-jae here?
Yes, we have heard that name before.
Okay.
It's easy to forget when they don't say it for like a cool period of time because we decide to be really vague. But yes, Myung-jae is his name.
Myung-jae. So, I was stoked to have a name to put to the face as much as I like Second Papa.
I'm going to continue calling him Dad Number 2.
So we cut from there to them actually meeting, and Lee Myung-jae kind of asks about Hong Hyul's career trajectory, and they're like, "Oh, my mom told me when I was really little that I had this uncle that I used to like follow around and love, and it's like, oh, it's cool to see you again, like that's great." And so they're getting caught up, and he's like, "Oh, career," and Hong Hyul's like, I'm obsessed with toy making, and I used to design robots, and I've actually like tried other careers and found that like this is the only thing that I think is suitable for me. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's an adult answer. That's something that somebody who's almost turning 30 would say.
Wow, it's almost like Hong Gyul is almost turning 30. I don't know though.
Oh boy.
So then, they get onto the topic of Hong Gyul's birth mother, because Hong Gyul asks, like, oh, did you know my birth mother? And I wanted, like, the, like, eyes, like, looking to the side emoji, so I had to draw it in my notes, because, like, I was like, there's nothing else that fits this situation than that emoji.
There was a really, I guess I'd say, good dialogue, where... Yeah. He's like, you're stubborn. You get that from your mom. And Hong Gyul's kind of like, oh, you knew my birth mother. And so they get on that topic. Because Hong Gyul immediately is like, my mom's not stubborn. Thinking about the mother who raised him and not his biological mother. So we cut to Coffee Prince. Where Mr. Hong is just kind of reading the news and being like, oh man, nothing good ever happens. What's with this? And, like, he's got the It's No Longer Cute But Sad Town Gazette in his hands.
Literally, Mr. Hong reading that newspaper was, like, the perfect foreshadow into, like, the rest of the episode. Because, oh my god.
Ooh. And then
we got a couple more seconds of Cute Town, though, don't worry.
Yeah, literally moments. They're draining rapidly like sand in the hourglass. And...
So Un-chan appears at the cafe. Yeah, so she comes in and immediately, because she's wearing her more like girly shirt and like
cute white top.
Yes, a very cute white top. And immediately CB is like, Un-chan, you're not wearing the correct clothes.
Bro,
did you forget?
Do you know that you're female presenting right now? Bro.
Yeah.
Bro. And then I think like she walks by the kitchen or whatever, and Sung-gi has like this brilliant line where he goes, "The way that I see it, she's never had any breasts."
I know, we cannot let Un-chan have titties for like 2 seconds in this show, can we?
It's just, what kind of character is Seung-gi that he just, like, sits here and he sees that and he's like, ah, yes. Peace was never an option. She never had.
Oh, man. Yeah, she's got to make her rounds by each character. CB is like, oh no, you might have forgotten, but Unchan, you're pretending to be a boy at Coffee Prince.
Because he's so dumb that he would forget. And so he assumes, he projects.
Seung-gi has to, like, make a comment and be like, sorry, Unchan, but titties were never in your future. And then
you
Harim...
will never reach titties.
And then Harim, I had very complicated feelings towards Harim this entire episode.
Ooh.
Just because, like, part of me was like, Harim, shut the hell up. You're being such a jerk, I hate you. But I also understand that his strong feelings come from the fact that, like, he is Hangil's, like, friend, and, like, I get it. But also, like, oh my god, I'm so, like, mad at him.
Yeah. Like, I feel like his intentions are good, but it's rooted in his character being this kind of, like, flippant, petulant child, almost, because...
Yeah.
We'll get into it. Because we still have... We're departing on the plane right now.
Yeah. Well, really quick, Harim does see her, and he, like, makes some comments and is, you know, being like, wow, like, so, like, you came here and you're wearing, like, girl clothes, blah, blah, blah.
He kind of assumes it's, like, all about him in a way, because he's like, oh, what, now that I know, you have no option but to come clean? Yeah. And she didn't know that he knew. She thinks that he might have already told Hangul.
Yeah, she immediately is like, oh no, like, does that mean Hangul knows? And Harim doesn't really tell her one way or another. He just kind of goes like, whatever, like, of course, or I don't even know, like, what exactly he says, but it implies pretty heavily that, yes, Hangul already knows.
Unchan very much is, like, apologizing. Like, the only thing she says is, like, I'm sorry, I have nothing to say except that I am sorry. And it's so frustrating because at that moment I really wanted her to be like, dude, it's chill, we're dating, he's gonna be stoked. Like, that's all I wanted.
Oh man. Yeah, she was like, well, come on. Because throughout this episode, there's a very big theme of, like, there's this idea that's, like, if in the end something ends up being a good thing, then you might as well let it be a good thing versus, like, being angry about the method of how you got there. That's kind of, like, a big theme that is just kind of talked about just because of this situation, but also, like, it's echoed in a lot of other situations.
The ends justifying the means.
Yeah. And it's really, because it's just very hard to see, because I feel like from an outsider's perspective, that's a really easy thing to think, to be like, well, at the end of the day, like, everything is fine, right? Like, it all equals out, you two like each other, whatever. But from the perspective of, like, the two people involved, it can't be that easy.
Harim says, did you know I've never seen him fall apart like that? And that was a tough line because, like, he's, like, his BFF, and Hangul, we kind of forget, used to have, like, this kind of playboy attitude about him, like, several months ago.
Yeah.
And, like, for Harim to, like, see him fall over this dude, and, like, all the extra stress that the gay panic has caused him, only to find out that, like, it was not necessary, or, like, it didn't have to be that difficult.
Yeah.
So he's understandably a little bit frustrated, but he's going about it in a really shitty way. Because he says, if you're gonna lie, there should be a limit. And I'm like, bro, what do you think this is? Like, they're trying to start an actual relationship. This is the limit. This is where Unchan decides.
Yeah. I feel like putting it that way is a really good way to, like, figure out how I feel about Harim in this episode. Because I do think, like, obviously his intentions are good. Because he's angry for the sake of his friend. And he, you know, all of his actions are kind of echoed by that. Like, he knows that this has been hard on his friend. And he, like, I don't know, he wants to do something, or, like, that's kind of, like, where this anger for him is coming from. But at the same time, every time he opens his goddamn mouth this episode, I'm like, shut up, Harim. Like, come on. There had to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, so she thinks that he's told Hangul, and he's, like, not alleviating her of that suspicion. And
Yeah.
she looks like she's about to cry, and he says to her, "Oh, don't hold back the tears. You're a woman now." And I'm like, dude.
Ugh. And he ends with this line that's like, all the feelings I've accumulated are gone.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, ouch, damn. Holy...
That's like, I've seen people who feel that way and who like they're like, no, I feel nothing now. But like to hear it articulated in that way without like screaming anger or like crying tears, he was just like, look, everything that we've done together really doesn't mean much because of how you've acted. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that one hurt. I was like, oh no, this is like, we're on the plane right now and there was some turbulence and we're like, whoa, is this kind of like a is this a little sample of what's to come?
Oh yeah. Freaking I wrote down a line here. Unchance a woman now? Always has been. And like oh. So we cut back to Myung-jae and Han-gyul, and he is learning about his mama, and they're kind of walking to the car, and he says, you know, nobody's ever like talked to me about my birth mom like this. I really appreciate it. And Myung-jae kind of like gives him this photograph very like quietly and somberly. And the impression I get is that like that's the only photo. Like it might be confirmed or denied later, but like that's a precious item.
He says something along the lines of like, there's not much I can do, but I can at least give you, like, let you know what she looked like.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like,
what a cool uncle.
I know. Wow, what a cool uncle that I have who just happens to know about my mom. Like, cool.
Oh yeah, no, I was totally starting to be here like, is that his fucking dad? Are you my daddy? Is this...
I feel like, because obviously we get to that point like later in the episode, but like there's just so much like weird ominous foreshadowing around this man that you cannot help but be like, so is this like his dad or like what? Like why are we being so weird about this guy? Like what is it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's not like a, you're in doubt. Like you don't know. It could be, it could not be. Part of me was like, oh, was the uncle like maybe his biological mom's brother, and that's why he's uncle. He's not necessarily related to Han-gyul's father.
Oh yeah, dang, that didn't even like go through my head. I was, as soon as I was met with this ominous character, I was like, nah, this is like his actual dad, and there's gonna be like a thing about it, right?
So now our plane that's in the middle of this turbulent storm has been forced to make an emergency water landing near the abusive relationship archipelago.
That's right, and we get out onto the raft, and all we see is, like, Yoo-joo in the distance, and she's making two toothbrushes kiss.
That's exactly what I wrote.
Me too!
She makes them go.
And then we just, like, cut to her, and she's just packing up a suitcase, and we're like, oh.
She's literally, there's just a counter full of, like, different bottles, and she has a bag that is way too small to fit all of them. But she's trying, and she's just putting bottles into bags.
Ugh, and then guess who shows up?
Oh god, could it be the guy whose house this is? Han-sung?
That's right, it's Sweeper, and he's here to bark and give everyone a good time.
Oh, please.
Just kidding, Sweeper is nowhere to be found, it's only Han-sung, and we're like, oh no.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
So he walks in, and there's Yoo-joo on the ground, packing up a suitcase.
He's very surprised that his girlfriend, who is leaving him, is leaving him.
Yeah, she's kind of, like, told him flat out in words many times. And even when he, like, said, like, because last episode there was a moment where he finally was like, no, I, like, don't want you to go, please don't leave. And she doesn't even say, like, okay, I won't. She straight up just goes, thanks for saying that, and then, like, continues to go and, like, see DK.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, why are you, like, come on, dude. Like, do they not talk ever? Like, what is this, like, missing link with these two people?
I'm starting to believe that the only communication Han-sung and Yoo-joo have is actually what's on screen. They don't talk to each other outside of the Coffee Prince footage.
There's no outside communication.
It would explain pretty much everything, honestly.
Yeah, it really would. So he comes in and he's like, what? I told you I don't want you to leave. And
I
Yuju was
specifically
like,
requested you not to leave.
and Yuju is like, okay, well, I'm leaving. Surprise.
Yeah, and
We get into this really heated argument, yeah.
ooh, it's super uncomfortable. And she's like, look, I know what your heart is like. And
he's like, tell me what my heart is like.
because he doesn't know, he's not familiar with the human emotion of heart.
He's like, what's that? I don't get it.
Oh, God. She says, like, what should I do? Do you want me to wait while you figure it out? Should I put my career and my life on hold and just pray that you decide to pick me after you've already, like, kind of fallen for this other girl? That, like, it's an emotional monologue.
Oh, yeah. She essentially gives him, like, a big ol' slap with words. And his response is just kind of like, yeah, that's what I want you to do. That's completely correct. What you just said is exactly what I was thinking.
Should I just sit on my ass and wait? Yes.
And he's like, yeah.
She's like, don't you know who I am? She, like, explains to him, like, I am not this person, like, that is going to sit around and wait for you to maybe pick me.
Yeah.
God. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting this at all, but Han Sung actually fires back with, like, this really powerful and, like, a little bit, I don't want to say inspiring, but, like, I feel like we rarely get to hear his perspective on the relationship with Yuju, and it's easy to forget that in the beginning, she was the one trying to, like, get back with him, and he was protecting himself emotionally because she cheated on him with DK in the past.
Yeah,
and
I was thinking a lot about that this episode, just because, like, it's really fun, and it has been great, and I am not going to, after this, be like, wow, I suddenly like Han Sung. But, like, yeah, you know, we've been shitting on him and, like, hating him immensely, but it is true that we don't really get to see his perspective a lot, and also, like, this relationship didn't start with him being like, what the hell is going on? I'm Han Sung and I don't know anything. It did start with Yuju being like, surprise, I'm back.
he straight up, like, her back is to him, I think, so he's saying this to, like, the back of her head, but he says, like, does my wavering in my feelings actually mean anything, or are they convenient excuses because you've already decided that you're always going to choose your career, and you're actually just abandoning me for DK again? And that's when I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh, man. Oh, my God.
He went off.
What is this? Am I having emotion in the form of Han Sung? What's going on right now? Hold on. What? When did we flip the table?
it was a legit shock, and I think there's, God, you just don't know. You just don't know what the truth is because she does not respond. She just leaves, and it's like, it's really one of the few times I can remember seeing something and being like, wow, both of these people's perspectives could be right, and the other person doesn't realize, like, that's what they're doing. Like,
yeah, I really wish they would just talk when they're off screen or something. I don't know.
She doesn't respond, and then oh boy, here comes Han Gyul.
Bye. Yeah, surprise. So we're back at the cafe, and guess who's suddenly here? Because in the beginning, when Unchan shows up and everyone's kind of like having their like, oh, like this is happening kind of moment, she does immediately say like, hey, where's Han Gyul? Because I'm pretty sure, probably in her mind, her plan was to show up at the cafe, immediately go find him, and be like, hey, I need to tell you this right now, like before I chicken out. Exactly. And that is not what has happened today. He comes in late.
Yeah, he was late because he was meeting with Myung Jae, and it adds to her anxiety because she's like, oh fuck, did Harim say something and now he's not coming into work today?
Yeah, not to mention she's already like changed and she's wearing her work outfit now,
yeah,
so she doesn't even have
sad.
that like visual representation that she had like worked so hard to pick out.
Yeah, and like from Han Gyul's perspective, like it would have been better if I say would have been better, I have no idea. But I feel like it would have been better if he had come in and seen her wearing the female presenting clothes rather than still male presenting and having to just like say it herself out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably would have been better for Unchan too, because in this next scene we see that the female presenting clothes was also probably a decision on her part to make kind of like she has to tell him now because she has to explain like the situation. And
exactly.
granted, yeah, she could totally maybe like lie her way out of it and be like, "Oh no, I just wanted to try a new style or something," but we know that she's not going to, and it kind of would have like solidified that that's what she's here to do. But now she's in her work uniform and she's kind of back to her like male / androgynous presenting appearance. And Hangyo comes in and he's like, "All right, it's time for me to flirt with my new boyfriend. Hello." And Unchan is like already shivering in her boots, like, because she's not sure if he knows, she's not sure what's going on, and she's just super nervous because now she knows she has to tell him. Not to mention Harim is around, kind of like being a jerk every once in a while.
Harim like watches Hangyul ascend the stairs with like this broken look on his face. Like he badly wants to say something, but it feels like he's at least giving Unchan the opportunity to come clean.
Yeah.
And to like Hangyul's credit, there's this very tense exchange between Hangyul and Unchan where she doesn't know what he knows, but he has had like an exhausting morning emotionally with this man who knew his biological mother and getting the picture, but he's still like happy to see Unchan, and they're sitting on the balcony just kind of talking, and he's like, "Oh man, my head hurts," like trying to bait him into getting head pats, I guess.
Oh yeah, he literally like he wants a nice little head pat. He wants a nice little pat on the head, and he's trying to get it. And Unchan is, I mean, I feel like even in the first place, this probably wouldn't have worked on Unchan. She'd probably have been like, "What?"
Oh yeah.
But in this state of mind, it's definitely not working. So he has to like manually take her hand and put it on his head, and be like, "This is what I want. I want a little pat on the head." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
To his credit, he's like actually sharing the information and his feelings. Like he opens up about his mom and Myungjae.
So at this point, there's a point where they start kind of like holding hands, and Unchan tries to tell him that, you know, this like secret that she's been holding back. Like she kind of like starts talking, but she just like cannot bring herself to say anything. Yeah. And at like after a nice little like tense moment, Harim comes in, and Hangyul kind of like quickly takes his hand out of Unchan's, because I guess they're still like hiding their relationship, which I mean they did literally kiss yesterday, so you know, fair enough. They're under the impression that nobody knows, or at least Hangyul is under the impression that like nobody even knows that they're like dating or anything. Like he's man. "Oh, we haven't told anybody yet." Yeah, because
I kind of didn't realize, because I thought it was so obvious to everybody that they had feelings for
right?
each other.
Oh no, yeah, it's like we can see how obvious it is, and I mean like even Unchan kind of knows, because like they're all kind of talking to her about it this whole time. Like Mr. Hong is always making comments, and like Seunggi is making comments, and like so I feel like she probably to some degree knows that everybody else knows, or at least like that most of them have an idea of what's going on. But Hangyul has the only person I'm pretty sure he really told his feelings to was Harim. And even then, it was only him saying, like, "I have feelings for Unchan," and it wasn't, like, any kind of, like, development that's happened. Because this whole development of this relationship literally happened last night, and now it's the next morning. And so, like, there has been no, like, "Hey, guys, by the way, we're dating." So Harim comes in, and Hangyul is like, "Oh, that's right, he doesn't know." Or at least that's my perspective of what he's doing there. He could also be like, "Oh no, I don't want my bro to know I'm gay," but he already did kind of tell his bro, so I don't know. I don't think that that's what's happening.
One of the things that Hangyul says that really got me was, he says, "It feels like a piece of ice in my heart. Like, why is it so cold?" And he's like, "Why are we both men? Like, let's just go to America." Yeah. And, like, that's a big, big thing, because like Unchan's been like, "Oh, well, he's leaving in a month," or like blah blah blah, like why should I bother telling the truth and confessing my feelings when like I'm going to lose him anyway. And this is him being like, "No, like I'm gonna include you in my life, let's go to America and play Lego."
Yeah, that's another thing that shows up in this episode a bit more, is that we kind of see that Unchan, when finding out that Hangyul was going to leave and go to America, she kind of signed herself up for this, like the idea that like she only has this month with him, and then he's gone because he's leaving, he's going to America, and that's it. She doesn't really even allow herself to entertain the idea of, like, if they were to get into a relationship, potentially continuing that relationship, whether it be, like, her going to America or, like, doing a long distance something or, like, what have you. But she's kind of signed herself up that, like, when he leaves, and that's it. And we see that obviously Hangul doesn't feel that way because, one, in the first place, his plan to go to America was kind of like, that's what he wanted to do from the beginning, but it wasn't necessarily set in stone because it's still possible it wouldn't have, like, worked because of the whole thing with the cafe, and, like, we've never really heard his side or his perspective on the matter. Like, he's never really said, like, he doesn't really make comments like, oh yeah, like, I'll be out. Like, every once in a while he might say something about it, but we don't really know what's going on in his head as far as that kind of, like, that future that lies ahead. And this is, like, a big blinking sign that's like, actually, Hangul is kind of entertaining the idea that, no, what if, like, I'm dating you, and what if we, like, keep dating, and, like, just because I'm going to America doesn't mean that has to stop.
It's that great, beautiful trope of what I wanted isn't what I thought I wanted. And one of the things he says is very much like, it's good to have a lover, which was what it was in my translation, which is...
That's what I got too.
Sage advice, really. It's good to have a lover.
So then Harim comes in and he kind of, like, interrupts this moment that they're having. And so they stop holding hands, and then Hangul ends up going downstairs, and Harim and Unchan kind of, like, share a quick moment here.
Yes, and Hangul is like, man, I'm gonna be 30 soon. Weird. And Harim, kind of thinking that he knows what's up now, is like, that girl can't help it. Like, oh, you know, you gotta hate the sin but love the sinner. Like,
okay, yeah. This is very important. So, Harim comes up, ruins this moment. Hangul ends up going downstairs. Unchan and Harim kind of, like, share a look at each other, and then Harim follows Hangul downstairs. So at this point, we've kind of got this whole thing where Unchan now knows that Hangul did not know that she is a girl, because he made it pretty obvious that he was still under the impression that she's a boy.
True.
And so now he's gone downstairs, and she was not able to tell him, so she's kind of in this mindset of, like, okay, I haven't done it yet, I'll have to do it, like, at another point today. Harim, on the other hand, under the impression, based on what he starts to say next, that in this moment, Unchan told Hangul, and the reason that he, like, walked away from her and went downstairs was because now he knows. So Harim follows him down, and I remember watching this through to the first time and kind of thinking that Harim was just, like, being a jerk and was just, like, deciding to be like, you know what, screw it, I'll do the thing. But no, Harim follows him downstairs, and he's making all these comments being like, hey, you know, like, don't sweat it, like, you know, you don't need a liar, you don't need someone like that, like, it's whatever. And Hangul is like, what? What are you talking about? Like, what's going on? And then all of the other, it feels so bad because they're downstairs with the rest of the Coffee Prince employees, and Mr. Hong, CB, and Sungi are all looking at this exchange with this, like, expression of just, like, tense and, like, oh no, like, don't, Harim, no. Like, you can just, like, feel it in the room that they're like, oh no.
And
Harim
cringing.
is just standing there.
They are
and Harim
straight
just...
up.
He does not stop talking. He keeps going, and what would you know? He is like, Unchan is a woman. Like, come on. And it just, oh god, it's not fun.
And Hangul is like, hey, you know, no matter how much I like that kid, you shouldn't call him a girl. Like, it takes like 4 or 5 times for Hangul to accept and realize what Harim is trying to tell him.
Yeah, Hangul is like, what? No. And then he's like, oh, come on. Like, don't say that. Like, just because, like, Unchan looks like kind of, like, don't let it fool you because, like, he's got a punch that could, like, really hurt you. Like, you don't want him to hear you saying that.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh god. And there's a small part of me that really wishes that, like, in the middle of this, Hangul would have just been like, haha, what are you saying, Harim? So funny. And would have just, like, walked away. That way there could have still maybe potentially been that opportunity for Unchan to tell him herself. But no.
Unchan, like, comes
No.
down the stairs
And
and is just, like, looking at Hangyul from above.
We've landed. We're here. We're in Sad Town. We're no
Ooh.
longer in Cute Town. They're, like, forcing us to get off the plane when we're, like, clinging to the seats, being like, please don't make us leave.
We're locked in the restroom, being like, occupied. Someone's in here. And Hangyul, he has, like, a violent reaction, and he kind of starts, like, raising his voice. Like, he's kind of shouting, being like, hey, are you a girl? Hey, are you a girl? Are you a girl? Like, just kind of really, just a bad move, man. Like, you don't have to raise your voice at people.
It's one of those things where it's like, there was a part of, because obviously my biggest sympathy here is with Unchan. Like, partly because, yeah, she's her protagonist, and she's kind of, like, the one that we've been following, and we're kind of more in sync with her story than we are with Hangyul's. Like, they're both kind of our like, leads, but, like, Unchan is the one that we're truly following.
Yeah.
So, obviously, like, yes, I know I was made to like her, but at the same time, like, I can't help but just, like, sympathize with Unchan in this situation. But at the same time, I mean, Hangyul kind of, like, losing it a little bit, like, he was just kind of, like, dropped this bomb of information, and he probably doesn't really know what to do with it, and I feel like him getting emotional in the response of just getting angry, we can't really fault him for that. Like, I mean, yeah, like, come on, like, you don't have to shout, but at the same time, like, I don't, he doesn't really know what to do with himself right now. He's, like, trying to make sense of what is going on, and the fact that he responds by yelling and getting angry, I don't, like, it happens. I don't know.
This was the point where he could have saved it. Because he's like, are you a girl? Are you a girl? Are you a girl? And Unchan nods. And I was like, okay, here's what has to happen next. I was like, he has to lift her up like they just won the NBA championship. And, like, Mr. Hong has to come over and, like, pour coffee over him like Gatorade. And, like, they just need to, like, start screaming, like, goal! Like, there needs to be, like, the biggest celebration. Like, the
He's
biggest
like, thank
exhale
God I
of
was
relief.
actually straight. Oh my God.
He, like, runs to the front of the door and he just starts ringing a bell that's there now. And, like, across the country, we see all the other characters just, like, turning towards the sun and smiling. Like, that's what needed to happen.
Oh my God.
What actually happens is he, like, just takes off.
Yeah. It's so, like, I mean, I hate it because, like, this is literally how it always goes down anytime there's, like, a plot that's about a character hiding a major secret. It literally never ends up where the character gets to tell them the secret themselves and kind of do so on their own terms and they're able to have a conversation about it, whatever. Like, that never happens. It's always, they have this secret, they hold it for a bit too long, they lose their chance to, like, admit it themselves, and then the other character finds out in a way that was not a favorable way, oftentimes the worst way possible. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like this way could have, like, this could have been worse, but it wasn't a good way to find out anyway. And then there's this whole misunderstanding because of it, and it's like, I mean, I've seen this show and I knew it was coming, but even, like, the first time I saw it, like, come on, I know this trope. This is a thing that happens all the goddamn time. Nobody can ever have a secret and reveal it on their own terms in a show ever. But it still hurts so bad to watch this and to feel this and to just be like, oh God, like,
He's, like, driving away, and Unchan is, like, running in his rear view after him, and she's, like, the fastest land mammal because she's just always right there in the rear view the 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, she's keeping up with this car. It's kind of impressive.
Oh yeah, no, the power of love will give you wings, and she is going for it, but eventually she can't keep running and stops. Which, damn, that sucks. We have Hangyul in his car having a realization montage.
Yeah, he's, like, realizing how many signs that he missed this whole goddamn time, and he's like, oh my God.
Which, like, I was super surprised to see that it includes the gallery date and the time that Hansung brought Unchan as a date to the gallery opening. Because, like, I didn't expect him to put that together, really.
Yeah, that's also something, because we addressed that later on in this episode, but yeah, when that was a part of his, like, realization montage, I was like, oh man, like, how do you put that puzzle piece together so fast?
all the montages as well, they kind of begin and end with this little whoosh sound effect.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them, so as sad as I was, I just kind of kept going like every time I hear this whoosh, whoosh of the new sound effect entering. Oh.
He's like, how did I miss this?
And then he has the best 2 screams that have ever been recorded in his car. They're just very short, very pained, like, ah!
Yeah, there's some good, like, guttural, ah!
He does a big scream because he angry.
He angry.
So back at Coffee Prince, CB is kind of getting into Ha-Rim for being, like, just a total jerk and, like, kind of not letting Eun-chan do that on her own terms, basically. And Ha-Rim is like, whatever, you gorilla. And then I forget if it's Seung-gi or Mr. Hong, but one of them says, well, if he's a gorilla, then you're a sparrow. And I was like...
definitely Seung-gi.
It's very poetic. I should have known it was Seung-gi.
Oh, yeah, no, because Ha-Rim is getting into CB, but CB, like, is he's not, like, taking it. Like, he's not sitting there being like, whatever. Like, everyone... And I mean, to be fair, everybody kind of found out what was going on from Eun-chan. The only one who didn't was Ha-Rim. And Ha-Rim is also closer with Hong-gyul. So it's understandable why Ha-Rim is like Team Hong-gyul in this whole situation. But it's very interesting to see because I feel like this whole time we've all kind of been from Eun-chan's perspective of like, oh, like we've known this secret the whole time. And every time someone else finds out, they're also seeing it from Eun-chan's perspective because they're finding out from her... and kind of, like, getting to hear her side of the matter. Ha-Rim, on the other hand, is kind of, like, Han-gyul's side of this. But, personally, I mean, like, I've been right there along with Eun-chan, so it's hard for me to not kind of be, like, really sympathizing with her on the whole matter. And so, like, when Ha-Rim is being there, like, getting mad, and, like, CB is mad right back at him, and then Seung-gi is, like, smacking him with a little verbal get-down... I'm like, yeah, get his ass. Like, come on, Ha-Rim, get out of here.
I never considered that, like, all the other employees find out firsthand, and then Ha-Rim finds out secondhand, and that contributes as well to his, like, feelings of mistrust and emptying all of the feelings that he's had for her.
Yeah. It's sometimes hard to, like, put blame on somebody when you find out it's not only from them and you also get to kind of hear, like, their side and, like, their reasoning for why everything is happening. Yeah. And Ha-Rim really doesn't get that because, like, even though, you know, like, the rest of the Coffee Prince boys kind of try to be like, hey, listen, like, she's got her reasons, like, don't do this. It's like, he's still not hearing it from her. And not to mention, he's, like, Hong-gyul's friend, so it's, like, it's kind of hard.
Hong-gyul calls to ask... he calls Eun-chan and he's like, who else knows?
Oh, yeah.
Oof. It's really accurate to real life that, like, somebody storms off angry and then thinks of some shit that they need to ask you and then, like, calls you, and that's a terrible phone call. And they really captured that feeling.
It's so tense. It's so, like, she gets this call and she's probably like, oh my gosh, yes, like, it's Hong-gyul, he's calling me, and all he's saying is just kind of like, does anyone else know? Was I, like, the last person to know? And then he's like, does Han Sung know?
Oh, yeah, he fixates on that real hard.
Eun-chan cannot even, like, bring herself to really answer that much. Like, she's just kind of sitting here on the phone quietly, and that's really all the answer that Hong-gyul needs.
It was crazy because he points out, like, who else aside from the coffee shop knows. And it's like, yeah, he literally was, like, the last person to find out, and, like, the only other character who doesn't right now, I think, is Grandma. That Eun-chan's met.
Yeah, like Grandma and Mom, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess some of the Coffee Prince patrons, but they probably don't even care.
They barely get any screen time.
There is, yeah, okay, when all of this, like, especially when we cut back to Coffee Prince and they're kind of, like, in the little, like, back room with, like, the sink, I'm like, part of me was like, are there, like, customers, like, right now, or are we still before opening? Because I can't tell.
Was this show about business before? So we cut to Hong-gyul has, like, driven over to Han Sung's place. And Han Sung has got his sweatpants on because he's going through a breakup right now. It's a big mood. And...
okay, literally, Hong-gyul comes inside and Han Sung is like, oh, hey, like, what's up? And Hong-gyul is like, did you know about Eun-chan? And Han Sung's immediate reaction is like, oh, all right, this is the kind of conversation we need alcohol for. So he's like, you want a glass of wine? And Han Gyul is like, I am not here to drink with my cousin. Tell me what I want to know. And Han Sung is like,
tries to like walk past him and gets like body blocked and like shoulder checked. And I wrote, okay, Han Gyul is not fucking around.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to like understand his feelings of like, why are you so mad? Like, if somebody has a secret and other people know about it, like, you can kind of infer that they didn't want to tell because it's not their secret to tell. But I guess he's just very upset that his cousin, like, did not let him know, because he was also privy to the fact that Han Gyul was, like, going through it.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, I mean, it's hard because in this situation, Eun-chan and Han Gyul are involved romantically. And they've spent a lot of time together. And I'm sure that there is a part of Han Gyul that feels like he's the closest person to Eun-chan right now. And I feel like it can't be a good feeling finding out that there was something that everybody else knows, that the person that you thought that you were kind of like closest to and that you thought you were like the person who would know the most about them. And there was this underlying thing that you were the only one who didn't know.
True.
Like, I can imagine that maybe, just maybe, we don't know, obviously, but, like, if this had still been a really well-kept secret and a lot of people hadn't actually known and he had been, like, one of the first people to find out, it maybe wouldn't have been as big of a deal. Not to mention, like, how long it took for him to find out, but, like, yeah, I can imagine that, like, finding out that, like, all these other people know that you didn't even think had, like, that, like, close of a relationship sometimes with Eun-chan. Like, he knew that they were friends, but he had no idea about, like, what was really going on with the whole, like, Eun-chan, Han Sung, like, Yuju situation that was going on back behind the scenes. So there's a lot of things that are coming to light for him right now. And as much as, like, my kind of, like, main sympathy is with Eun-chan, like, I really feel for Han Gyul and just, like, what is happening to him right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the one person who I have no sympathy for in this situation is Han Sung, because Han Gyul is like, why didn't you tell me? And he says, oh, you didn't ask me. Like a prick. And then...
Alright, I didn't really see that as much of a, like, jerk move. Like, I don't know.
That's just, like, the biggest, like... should he have asked him, hey, this guy, like, do you know if he's a girl? Like, you know that I'm having this, like, homosexual panic right now. Nah, you didn't ask me. Like, it's like Genie rules. And, like...
I guess I didn't hear it as much of a, like, well, you didn't ask me. And I heard it more as a, like, I don't know. I heard it with a bit more of, like... less, like, sarcastic and jerky and, like, come on, you should have asked me, like, this whole time, and more as kind of, like, a... I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad.
True. I mean, I also didn't benefit from hearing the inflection in the native language. I pretty much only got the information by reading it. But then Han Gyul's immediate response kind of reinforced my perception of it, because he just decks him. Like, wapa, like, right in the chin.
Oh, man. Yeah, he gives him a good old Bobby Big Five right to the cheek.
Ooh, Bobby Big Five. I like that.
Ugh.
Oh.
So then, Han Gyul is like, listen, I need you to tell me right now. Did, like, you know and did Yuju know? And also, was the girl in the situation that was happening with you and Yuju, was that Eun-chan? And, like, Han Sung is kind of being like, oh, well, like, come on, I don't know. And Han Gyul, like, power moves him by being like, if you don't tell me, I'll just ask Yuju. And Han Sung is still kind of like, whatever. So then Han Gyul whips out his phone, dials Yuju's number, and gets her on the line and is staring at Han Sung like, hey, Yuju, I've got a question for you. Was the girl that Han Sung was having relations with that was causing your relationship turmoil, was that Eun-chan? And it's just like, oh my god.
Oh my god. And then Han Sung grabs the phone while it's still on, so Yuju hears him say, yeah, yes. I did like her, but she doesn't like me. I've sorted it out.
Yeah, he very much, like, pops up, because he's not gonna let this be how how the information happens. And he takes the phone, does not press end, and is like, okay, fine, yes, I liked her, but she doesn't like me. And Yuju's just sitting there like,
Can we talk
right.
about how Yuju hearing that line is so bad because the implication is I like her, but she didn't like me, meaning like, oh, I would have if I could have, but I couldn't, so I didn't.
She takes it with like, all right. Like that's that's kind of like all she has in response to that moment.
Oh yeah,
and
she's
to be fair,
filing
we get kind of like cut away from her pretty like early before maybe like she's had time to process what just happened. But still, it's very like she just hears it and then she kind of like puts down the phone and she's like, weird. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the inside of Hangyul's apartment where it looks like a mess. There's like a cup noodle by the answering machine. And Unchan is calling, being like, hey, are you home?
Yeah, she's leaving messages.
You didn't get into an accident, did you? Like,
Yeah.
and again, like, true to life, like, that's very sad when, like, somebody's not responding to you because of a fight, and, like, you kind of just want to know that they're okay.
Ugh.
And, I was feeling for her. And then we get, like, a nice comedy edit where it cuts to her and she's calling from outside the front door of his house.
Oh wow, I definitely didn't feel that as comedy. I felt that as, this is so sad to think that like she came to his house and she's like trying to see if he's there, and she's thinking that it's totally possible that he is home but he's just not answering the door, and so she's like, all I can do right now is just call and like leave messages in hopes that he hears me. That's kind of how I interpreted that.
I guess I had to laugh at something, like...
There's so many, like, hard-to-handle things happening right now that you gotta take the comedy where you can find it. You gotta be like, oh, thank God, something lighthearted for once.
And then Hangyul kind of, like, comes in through it's kind of like an airlock. Like, there's the hallway, and then there's the doorway that leads into the antechamber to his house.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not like a staircase or anything.
No.
No. Couldn't be that.
Wait. I'm not an architect.
When he gets home, he enters the chamber of cleansing and secrets, yes. And he like has to stand there for a minute, and it kind of like transports him where he needs to be, and then once he's ready to exit, he opens the door and then his apartment is in front of him.
Yes, that.
Yes.
And so Unchan is standing there, and he kind of just, like, tries to walk past her.
Yeah.
But she gets in front of his door, and I was like, hell yeah, baby girl. Like, do it. Talk to him. Make him use his words.
I was so conflicted, because part of me, this entire episode, is screaming, like, talk to each other, like, lay it all out on the line, like, let each other know what you're feeling. But I also understand that it's been a big day and maybe we need to, like, sit down for a second and just kind of, like, have a moment to ourselves. Like, a lot has happened. Maybe we need to chill. I don't know. I'm very torn between, like, just talk to each other already, just get it out there, and maybe take a breather before getting into this heavy conversation. But Unchan is going for it. She's like, nope, I've signed myself up. And not to mention, she hasn't really gotten to share her side yet.
Yeah.
Like, all of this has happened and she has not gotten one single chance to even say what has happened from her own mouth. So I guess it is good that she's, like, here and she's saying something, because she hasn't gotten her chance to yet.
I didn't write down exactly what she says, but I wrote down that
either.
she asserts herself.
Yes.
And I think that she's saying things about, like... Yes, she's saying, it started out because I really needed the money, and...
Yeah, she's basically, like, explaining, like, giving her background for, like, this is why I did this. Like, because there is kind of this big feeling that I feel like Hangyul has been settling in that's like, oh, this was all, like, a joke against me, because everybody knew and I didn't know. And she's kind of explaining, like, the reason that this started was because, you know, like, I mean, I needed a job, and you were hiring men, and, like, you know, and then we entered into this thing where you said that, like, if I was a girl, you wouldn't have liked me, and, like...
Literally!
Basically just kind of, like, yeah. Oh, she's, like, kind of just, like, word vomiting into this, like, explanation of, like, well, it started out as this, and then I was gonna tell you, but then I couldn't because this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. And it's, like, we've seen this story unfold, so we know how kind of, like, all of the feelings that she's gone through, but when you kind of, like, put it into one big, like, speech like that, it can't help but kind of feel a little bit like, especially after the day that Gyul's had, I'm sure that to him this kind of just feels like a big excuse.
Yeah. I mean,
Unfortunately.
it started out with a kiss, like, and then it ended up
How did it end up like this?
like this, you know? And now he cabadons.
Yes. Oh, he
her.
like two-hand cabinet. Like, he doesn't do the wall. He grabs her shoulders and like slams her up against the door. And I was like, whoa. Like, I was very much like on edge.
There's a lot of unnecessary roughness in this episode that I was uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And he pushes her up against the wall and he cabadons her. And he's like, tell me that this is all an elaborate joke and that you wouldn't lie to me because, like, somebody who loves me wouldn't lie to me. And
he's very much like, Hun-chan, please say psych. Please say psych right now.
Say no homo right now, bro. Like,
no, he's saying please say homo. Hun-chan.
Yeah.
Please say homo.
He's crying, but he's also just shouting in her face at her level, bent down, both hands blocking her from moving against a door. And I was like, this is a bad way to be doing things.
I'm back to my mindset of maybe we should have sat down and given each other a breather second before, because I'm like, oh no, this isn't good.
His whole argument basically boils down to, like, you lied to me. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, that it's not how it always is. Every time that there's a plot where somebody lies, like, the person who is lied to is like, but you lied to me.
Yeah, they're never actually upset about what was being deceived. They're just upset about the deception.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, again, I wrote down, like, just lift her up over your head and start cheering because you found somebody who you love and who loves you back and you're both adorable and, like, you're rich and, like, you could have a great life. Just choose peace, choose happiness, Gyul.
Honestly, and that's, like, kind of like I was saying before, like, that's a big recurring theme throughout this episode, is, like, we're gonna see more of this conversation, but Gyul is kind of, like, he's stuck in this place of, like, you know, he's upset about the way that things went down, and he's upset about the fact that he was lied to, and there's all this stuff, and it's like, do you, you know, consider those things, or do you just be happy about the things that are good? Like, where is the kind of line here? Like, when is it right to hold on to those negative feelings, and when is the time to just kind of, like, be happy with what is good and what you know is, like, happy? Like, ugh.
Yeah, at what point do you just accept that things can be better?
Yeah.
And, like, that even goes back to Yuju and Hansung at the beginning of the show and making the decision to, like, I like you, you like me, like, let's just do this, without much concern for these things that could become an issue later.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty cool, like, visual symbolism, tautology, where Gyul moves Unchan like he's opening the door. Like, he grabs, they're facing each other, he grabs her right shoulder, kind of, and he kind of pivots her away from the door. And then he does a similar motion opening the door to his apartment. And then he walks into his apartment and does the same motion again, opening the fridge. So right there, that's 3 layers. So he's exited from the public Unchan space of his heart, and he's gone into his house where he can be alone with his feelings. And deeper than that, he's gone into the fridge. Which means that he can grab a bottle of water and take a cold shower with it.
And then dump it on his head. Yeah. Okay, I'll be honest. This started out, and I was like, yeah. And then you got to the part where you said 3 layers, and for a split second, I was a little scared we were going to tread into Shrek territory. I was like, is this where this is going?
Listen, Shrek 3 was the in-flight movie on our trip to Depression Country.
We had to take a quick Shrek the Third break because... but yeah, no, he like, exactly that. He goes to his fridge and he takes a sip of this water and then he decides that it's better just, like, poured over his head because he can't step into the shower to take a cold shower. He needs to pour the purified water on.
And then Eunchen, in a recreation of her scene from earlier, she does the heart poundy thing, which when she did that after the phone call with Gyul, she says, like, ooh, my heart was going to explode. So, like, similar feeling now, her heart is going to explode, but it's worse context and because of sorrow rather than, like, hopefulness.
It's sad to see it in this way because she's, you know, taken, like, her hand and kind of, like, pounded on her heart many times before in this show, but most of the time it's usually, like, more of like an adrenaline or like a, oh, my heart is pounding, like heart calm down.
Yes.
And this I feel like is the first time that it's in such a sad way.
It went from doki doki to achy breaky.
Oh, my achy breaky heart. Oh no.
The way the scene was framed, we cut back to like Gyul in the kitchen, in the fridge specifically, and you can see that there's beer behind him. And I fully expected him to crack open a beer and just douse himself with it. Like, I thought that was exactly
drink it. He was like, it's better if it just gets absorbed by my skin.
Cutaneously, yes. God, I just wish that... I feel like there had to be a take where the actor was just like, I'm going for it, and he just improvised emptying a six-pack on himself.
I hope so. I hope that exists in like the deleted scenes of Coffee.
The director's coffee cut. Oh.
Yeah, at this point it was very like Eunchen is crying, Gyul is crying, I was crying. It was not fun. Yeah, this is, I mean, like I'm the kind of person who when I watch content that is emotional, I'm very like empathetic and I always like get emotional alongside it. And even upon like rewatch after rewatch, I still found myself crying at this part because it's just that like painful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that when I watch stuff with you, I also get that. But when I watch on my own, I'm very detached emotionally from media.
Yeah, I'm not only like empathetic, I also like project my emotions onto other people. So yeah, if you
Kara's basically an X-Men.
I'll just put all my emotions on you. Guess what? You thought you didn't cry at movies, but now you do.
Oh yeah, Carol will be like, isn't this so sad? And I'm like, oh fuck, you're
Why
right.
am I crying?
We get a good cut. I won't say comedy edit again, because this one I was actually like a little bit like, oh, it's kind of sad in a pathetic way. And it cuts to Eunchen like face up with a tissue covering her whole ass face, and there's 2 wet spots on it from her tears.
Oh yeah, and Unse is like, well, of course that's what happened.
She's full sister mode. She's like, you don't need him. Like, you gotta move on. Like, he seems hard to please anyway. Like, I never trusted this guy.
Oh yeah, she's all in on it, and like Eunchen isn't really happening it because she's like, no, like I really love him, and like I need
to tell him that I love him.
And Unse is like, forget this guy. Come on, forget this guy. Like, who is this
and then
guy?
Mom,
he's like 30. Forget him.
Mom, in her push to become my new favorite character, is just kind of like, oh, my baby girl is crying over a boy.
I know.
Have some watermelon.
My favorite thing in this scene is actually the very last, like, half a second before we cut away, because Eunchen kind of, like, rolls over, like, takes the tissue off her face, blows her nose in it, and then, like, rolls over and gets her head, like, underneath the table, and we just see in the corner Mom pushing a plate of watermelon to where her spot on the table would be. And I was just like, oh, God.
Oh, man.
My heart. Ouchie.
It's very... The thing that I really like and appreciate about Coffee Prince is the age range of the cast and like the universality of the themes, because like everybody's experienced love, everybody will experience love at some point in their life. That's just my personal philosophy. And the reactions of the older people to first love and to heartbreak is encouraging, because you're seeing all the in the moment like heavy emotions and pain, and then Mr. Hong and Mama are there to always not be jaded, but be realistic about it. And she's like, oh, my baby's crying over a man. Like, this has never happened to Unchan before. And it comes from a place of experience and also of, like, concern for the younger generation.
Yeah.
And I can't recall seeing that anywhere else, honestly. That attitude towards love.
I would definitely agree. It's not like coming from a place of like a jaded, like, oh yeah, like this is what love does to you. It's even Mr. Hong, who, especially when he talks about his past experiences with love, he always kind of words them very bluntly. And you can't help but be like, damn, that doesn't sound like fun, like this poor guy. But he says them with this like nostalgic kind of like air and this just smile on his face that's like, that's how love is. Like, man, isn't it great to be young and like get your heart broken? Like, just looking back and being like, those are experiences that he had, and like he cherishes them.
He strips away the entire plot. Like, if his life was a drama, he would literally just be like, well, this is what happened, and man, that was cool.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he actually does that a little bit later on, and we'll get to that because it's one of my favorite parts of the show so far.
Yes. I won't say it's my favorite part of the show, but I think it's definitely my favorite part of this episode.
Ooh. So Hong, who we were just talking about, is at Coffee Prince having the world's loudest phone call with Han Gyul.
Oh my god.
And they're, like, going back and forth about, like, why aren't you coming in? Like, oh, man, if the employee does something, then you should fire them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, come on, this again?
Yeah, he's literally like, listen, dude, like, if I don't really care what's going to happen, but you are the manager of this establishment and you should be here at work. I don't care what's going on in your love life. If you're happy with this employee, just fire her. Like, just come to work, dude. Come on.
I mean,
it's
if
like,
nothing else, this drives home to the point that if you are romantically entangled with your boss, your job security go down.
Yeah. I mean, like, don't date your boss, kids.
Sage advice.
That's really the like moral of this episode is don't date your boss.
And then Hong kind of like hangs up and he's like, hey, Unchan, if your manager tells you to quit, then just quit. And I was like, dude, like, what? It seemed like it kind of came, like, out of nowhere almost. Like,
yeah.
It felt really not unkind, but, like, unfeeling for him to be like, hey, if your boss says go, then go. Like, because I would have expected him to, like, stick up for her or something.
Yeah. I understand that feeling. I mean, like, I don't exactly remember what it was like when I first watched it because it was so long ago. But I mean, this scene always kind of, like, feels the same way because you're like, damn, Mr. Hong, like, come on. I think that the reason it probably doesn't hit me like that as hard anymore, though, is probably just, like, upon rewatching and also just kind of, like, rewatching this series and seeing the characters in that light of, like, knowing what they're going to do, so you kind of, like, focus on other things. To me now, it feels very much just kind of like, yeah, that's Mr. Hong. But, yeah, no, it still doesn't feel good. Like, you're like, come on, Mr. Hong, like, don't say that.
And then we cut from there to Mom, Grandma, and Han Gyul's dad, air quotes dad,
Han Gyul's dad?
And they're kind of talking about, like, we're sending Lee Myung-jae away soon. And I'm like, what? Like, they're in control of him? And
oh my gosh,
they're like, oh, well, it's only understandable that he would want to see Han Gyul. Like, they're blood, after all. And I'm like, oh, because, like, uncle, like, they're blood relatives. Like, it makes sense. And then they just kind of drop the bomb.
Yeah. It's very, like, I feel like, because I talked about last time how, like, this whole Myung-jae, like, Han Gyul's actual dad, whole kind of, like, thing every time takes me by surprise upon rewatching. Because it happens so late, and it's definitely not the focus of the show. So it's very easy to watch again and be like, oh yeah, this happens. And this scene, I feel like, is a perfect example as to why maybe it's so fuzzy in my memory. Because this whole thing is talked about so vaguely that it's so easy to be like, is this... Like, even watching and kind of, like, knowing, but still not really knowing, I was like, so does that mean he is dad or what? Like, they said blood. Is he actually dad? Until they finally just, like, straight up are like, yes, Han Gyul is a child that we, like, took in, and neither of us are his actual parents. And I'm like, okay, finally we've gotten there. Like,
It happens
okay,
suddenly.
the puzzle is together.
And so briefly, because we've cut
Yeah.
from Mr. Hong's conversation to Lee Myung-jae is daddy, which means I guess I can't call him, like, second Papa. I'll have to call him, like, Papa Prime or something. And then we
Papa
cut from
Prime.
there to Ha-rim just bullying Eun-chan at the coffee stand outside.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I feel like this like outdoor session where they're handling the outdoor coffee table is like slowly but surely becoming like a bad omen, because that's like the perfect time for Ha-rim to be mean to Eun-chan. Well, she can't do anything because she has to make coffee and serve the customers.
It's so fucked up because he's like, he calls her shameless. Like, oh,
Ugh.
don't you, like, come on, dude, have some self-control. Like, and it's like, bruh, like, I need money to support me family.
Ugh,
The dojo was
ugh.
closed. What was I supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, in, I guess, Harim's defense or whatever, like, he doesn't really know, but, like, at the same time, he's just being a big jerk, and I'm done with him. And eventually, Eun-chan is like, I'm out of here. And also, Waffle Boy has been there this whole time, as he always is. Poor Waffle Boy is always on the same shift with Eun-chan and Harim, like, handling this outdoor coffee table. And as soon as Eun-chan is out, Harim is like, yeah, whatever. And Waffle Boy looks ready to throw a punch. Like, he is this close. And Harim kind of, like, challenges him because, like, Waffle Boy is standing there being like, listen, dude, you're being a jerk and I don't...
He's like, why are you mad?
I'm not, like, on the same
Why
page
should
as
Han
you."
Gyul care about trust when
Yeah.
he was literally just, like, being a playboy a few months ago? Like, why does that matter to someone like
Yeah.
him?
Oh, yeah, because Harim tries to be like, oh, like, breaking trust. And he kind of tries to, like, play his case to Seung-gi. And Seung-gi is like, I don't understand. Like, there's not even a good starting point here. Like, trust? What trust? Like, Hangul is out here doing his thing. Why do you care? And Harim is kind of like, square up, bro. And Seung-gi is ready. Like, he's this close to whipping out his fists and being like, aight, square
Harim
up.
delivers, like, the most JoJo line I've ever heard. He's like, when's your next
Oh,
day
no,
off?
we're back to...
So we can fight it out.
We're back to Coffee Prince to Bizarre Adventure.
Exactly. His stand, Waffle Deluxe, is gonna obliterate Harim.
Oh my god.
Star Macchiato versus Waffle Deluxe.
Wow, pretty good.
But, like, I think Hangul walks in and past Eun-chan.
Yeah, Hangul is like, here I am. I've gotten into a habit of being late because my mornings are sad.
My life is terrible, so is my attendance. Sue me, I'm your boss.
Yeah.
And he just, like, straight up walks right past Eun-chan, who's, like, cleaning a table, and inside to where CB comes over, and he...
Oh, he's standing there like a nervous puppy. Like, you know that this is what he's kind of been, like, waiting on doing today, is that as soon as Hangul appears, like, this is
He's so precious. He bows, and he's like, look, I had to keep the secret because of Unse, and because, like, Eun-chan... I forgot about this plot point. Eun-chan was like, hey, if you want to get with my sister, like, you have to not make me mad. And that includes keeping my secret. And then he did his best the whole time to keep that secret.
Yeah.
Like, he's such a good character.
I like to believe that in the beginning, there was very much like, okay, like, I've got to get this boy to keep my secret, so obviously I'm going to use the chip of, you like my sister. But over time, I like to believe that CB and Eun-chan did grow closer, and that there was a part of CB that was also keeping the secret because of that respect that he had developed
100%.
for her.
100%. Like, from the
yeah.
moment that Eun-chan physically defeats CB, he's like an Enkidu character. Like, he takes the hand of Eun-chan's Gilgamesh, and, like, together they're gonna walk through the 12,000 Leagues of Darkness. Like...
Ooh, very good.
I'm not like this. I don't gush over characters, but, like, CB's face is so dumb and punchable. Like,
Oh my god.
I get the cuteness aggression. Like, when you see a very small, cute animal and your brain is like, shake it, and your head is like, no. but like you feel the urge.
I very much understand this feeling because I have like a big weakness for stupid characters. Anytime anyone is just really dumb, I'm immediately like, I love you.
His brains may be skinny, but he is dummy thick in the heart. Like, you can't deny.
Aw, his heart is dummy thick. Oh man.
And Gyul just kind of goes, shut up. Get out of here,
Yeah.
you simp. I don't care. And it's like, come on. He basically calls him a backstabber. He's like, you were my friend. You should have let me know. And that, like, single-mindedness, I don't know. I feel like Gyul reached a point this episode, and I don't know how long it lasted, but where he's kind of become set in his anger, and he's determined not to be moved from that just yet.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a sad thing to see.
Mr. Hong, yeah. Mr. Hong takes a swipe at it. He kind of, like, comes in with the guilt trip. Like, he's like, oh, man, poor Un-chan. You know, in a family with, kind of like ended up being the head of her family, you know, their father died, and she's kind of like the one who's got to carry on the family and, like, support them financially.
Yep.
Oh, man, poor Un-chan couldn't do anything except pretend to be a boy to get a job.
They're talking about, her last paycheck. And he's like, hey, where do you want to cut it off? Like, she hasn't worked these last couple days, but, like, they're still on the pay schedule. And Gyul's like, well, when have you ever deferred to me? And it's like, dude, you can't get along in life if you make everybody your enemy.
I'm a big baby right now.
It gave me, like, heartburn, which was convenient because Mr. Hong says all that stuff about Un-chan while drinking Pepto-Bismol from a small pouch.
Of course.
He's just downing this bright pink liquid, and in between sips is like, oh, man, she always had to be the man of the house, so it's a logical conclusion for her to dress as a man and work at this restaurant.
It's so, like, man, there's a small part of me that's almost hoping, like, this guilt trip is what softens Gyul's heart. But you're right, he's at this point, and he's kind of resigned himself. He's like, no, I'm mad. And I'm going to be mad no matter what.
I'm not normally a fan of flashbacks, but I feel like the plot would have been really well served if, while Mr. Hong says, oh, you know, she's done anything and everything to feed her family, we got, like, a flashback to the night where they sewed the doll together. And, like, because Gyul did have that moment where he learned the appreciation of money from having to see how many dolls for so little money that Un-chan would sew to, like, help support her family. And, like, I just feel like if he had remembered that, maybe he would have, like, jogged himself out of this anger funk sooner. But I understand for plot purposes, probably can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I personally would have loved that. And if the story had gone in that direction, I would have been very happy, because there's a lot of angst this episode, and I don't know, I'm not faring too well. I really need to get back to Cute Town. But, yeah, I see why they didn't, because they had to draw this out. They had to take it and, like, tug it, and it's kind of like, it's like they're making, like, noodles out of Play-Doh. They have to just keep rolling. Oh, yeah. It's got to be as long as possible.
And then Gyul kind of tells Mr. Hong to, like, lay off Un-chan, and Mr. Hong is like, fire her yourself. You won't do it, coward. Come on.
Do it, you won't.
I double dare you. Fire Un-chan. What?
I triple doggy donut dare you, Gyul. You won't.
And then Gyul has to call his non-biological mom and let her know that he got roasted.
Maybe he has to figure out how to call his biological mom, because he calls his non-biological mom and she's like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not the person you need to be telling right now. And he's like, oh god. And this story just becomes like him searching for that phone number.
The phone number to heaven, Coffee Prince episode 12.
Yeah, oh my god.
And then he
has to find the one phone that'll let him call the afterlife.
Man, what a mood.
Anyway, Donkey Kong is like, it's been too long that I haven't been mentioned. I need to get back in the game.
It's time for me to reappear in the story. I wrote down, DK is just kind of being a dick in some glass palace, because they're in, like, this very antiseptic, like, museum, fancy building area with Yuju, and they're talking, And he's like kind of questioning her motivation for like, why are you coming with me to New York? Like, doesn't that imply that we're getting back together, kind of? And she tells him like, oh, I'm running away. And like, good on you for being honest, but wow.
Yeah. Surprise.
And then I think we cut from there to Han-sung coming over to Yuju's apartment.
Oh yes, no, we're shown like Yuju and DK are here and they're like whatever. And then we like cut to Hansung like coming over Yuju's place and surprise surprise, guess who's there? It's DK.
On
and
the
it's like
couch.
all hands are on deck.
They're sitting across a table from each other. And like, not to mention this is the first time that we've seen these wiener cousins on screen together. But like the Yuju sitting next to DK on the couch across from Hansung, it was just masterfully upsetting. Because it's 100% like us versus you, and I hate that.
Oh yeah, it's very like Yuju kind of launches into this little, and it's like we can see because we see how she's kind of like looks up at Hansung and then is like, "Hey DK, like you remember this tea?" And it's like, "Oh okay, I can see what's going on right now." And they tell us point blank later that yes, that was Yuju kind of being like trying to like get at Hansung using DK.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, she starts being like, "Do you remember this tea? It was from a shop that was like right by your apartment in America."
Oh, not just an apartment, a villa.
Oh yeah, and like, oh gosh, like it was so pretty. It had a little garden out back. Like, don't tell me you don't remember. And she's just like glancing up at Hansung like this whole speech, and DK is kind of like, "Haha, yeah, that's
DK
right.
being like
I
the
remember."
weird business gorilla, I guess, that he is. Just kind of, he's like, oh hey, I saw a movie in Japan that you did work for. Let's collab. Which, like, there's nothing slimier than just some dude who's like stealing your girl, being like, hey dude, let's work together.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I do art, you do music. We could make that work together." And Hansung is literally like, "Am I being played
punked?
right now? Am I being?" So eventually he has enough, and he's like, "DK, I'm gonna need you to step out. I need to talk to Yuji right now."
Yeah, he's like,
And
cool,
like,
cool.
oh god.
What the fuck is going on? Like,
yeah. Oh my god. So then we cut to Yuju talking to DK. And so they're out there, and this is when Yuju kind of like tells DK point blank. She's like, "Hey, sorry about that. I was just kind of using you to make him mad." And DK is like, all right.
DK says, hey, you like him and he likes you. What's the problem? Which is like the 4th or 5th time that's been said this episode.
Yes, it's a big recurring theme. This kind of like, and it's basically that idea of like, oh, are you just gonna like go for what's good and like be fine with it, or are you gonna worry about the other stuff? And it's always phrased in this way that's like, you like each other. I don't understand what the problem is when you two like each other.
It's like everything else. Not everything, but it doesn't matter that there's inconsequential stuff in the way, like gender. Haha. And
got him. That's right, everyone. Gender is a construct. Get it out of here.
Yeah, literally. And it's just like don't let these small things ruin your time together. Like that perspective of like life is brief and love is even more so. So like you have to just not care about every little thing and just embrace that you have found something that is worth keeping.
Yeah.
And damn, I didn't think I would like DK.
Oh my gosh, yeah. DK kind of has like the realest moment in the whole episode where he straight up is kind of like, "Listen, I like you and I had feelings for you, and I understand that like you didn't, and like that's all right, and like you two like each other, and it's all good. I'm gonna peace out, all right? Let me know if you ever want to catch up." And I'm like, wow.
Using me to torment this guy that you're in a relationship with is shitty. And he's like, just tell me, like, what do you actually want? And she says, I don't know why I'm like this. Which is like, fuck, dude. Like, that's a hitter. And she says, I don't like him looking at other women. And then DK goes, it's really good that you're honest, but you didn't consider my feelings at all. And she says, I'm always sorry to you. Which I kind of had to do some interpreting with that. Like, does that mean, like, I'm grateful? Does that mean, like, or I'm indebted, like, something, or I can't really repay what I've done to you? Like, there's a couple ways that I could take that. And he responds by saying, I don't like walnut pies anymore, which is a throwback to the villa tea house conversation, but it was also just an interesting way to
where
end.
she was like, don't you love walnut pie? And he's like...
Yeah, I guess it's to show, like, hey, you don't really know me as well as you think I do, or, like, I'm capable of moving past things that I used to like. So in this case, Yuju is the walnut pie.
I think it was much more that second one. I don't think that was an attempt to be like, you don't know me. I think that was more like, people change, like things can change, and also, like I've moved past something that I used to like. And that's totally possible.
Yes, he only likes banana pies now.
Yes, of course. It was so interesting to see DK get introduced as this, like, character that we know nothing about, who's just kind of, like, in the distance. And then when we finally meet him, all he's doing is being, like, the biggest asshole in the entire world. And then he kind of leaves us in this episode with, like, maybe the realest thing that anyone has ever said, aside from, like, Mr. Hong. Like, I was like, oh my God.
Very early on, you're kind of left to assume that he's the homewrecker that broke up this relationship between Hansung and Yuju. And it's like, oh, well, he's so successful and he's so good for her career. Like, how could she not choose him over Hansung? But when you actually, like, get to see him, like, yes, he's cocky and an asshole, without actually doing anything that's asshole-ish. Like, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance. And it feels like he was probably sincere about, like, networking with Hansung and liking his work. And he was probably just, like, trying to communicate in an awkward situation. Like, so it's one of those things where it's like, DK did nothing wrong. And we're kind of left to see, like, wow, Yuju is capable of twisting the knife in Hansung, as it were. And she's capable of using other people to kind of make the points that she wants to make. And it leaves you, like, sort of reevaluating that initial relationship between Yuju and Hansung.
Oh, yeah. I feel this episode feels like such a turning point for their relationship. Just because, like, there's so many things that happen that... I mean, I'm thinking back to, like, you know, the first, like... Honestly, every episode up until now, we've kind of been like, bro, Hansung, big stupid idiot. Yuju knows what the hell is up. And this episode, they literally are able to, like, flip our perspective on those characters with just a couple of scenes. It's very impressive.
The porthole effect. Like, if you're looking into a room from a window, you'll never see the whole house. And so the more of this house that we see, the more we're like, okay, these are two flawed individuals with a complicated history that are struggling with their feelings for each other and other people. And the message that we're getting from the plot of the story is like, well, does it matter, or can they move past it? Like, is this something that you can accept? And we cut back inside to Yuju's apartment, where Hansung is trying to earn good boy points by doing the dishes in his cute little apron. And they sit down to have their talk.
Yeah. I wrote down in my notes, Hansung is talking like a person. Because it was just, I mean, like, you know, after everything that's happening, it's like, we just kind of had this short scene from DK kind of dropping like a little real bomb on us, and then we get to this conversation, and Hansung, I feel like, has never felt more human than he does in this scene.
Because he's finally talking. He's finally opening up, and he says, like, wow, I'm jealous. Like, he's capable of just admitting that because DK was here, and it, like, kind of felt like he was intruding on their time together. He's like, I'm jealous. And then he follows it up with, is that what you wanted? Like...
Yeah.
And Yuju kind of immediately goes into the, well, when I told you that I might leave, you didn't immediately say, please stay, please stay. And, he responds by being like, well, I'm over Unchan, so, like, it's fine now. Like, I wavered, but I'm sure that I'm done wavering. And she says, "Look me in the eyes and say you're over her." To which he closes his eyes and looks away before insisting that he's over her.
Classic Han Sung.
And then this is where we get into what was originally going to be the episode title, where it's like the heart's direction. And damn, this was like, as somebody who's been in like a couple long-term relationships, this was a very powerful argument scene because it deals with their knowledge of each other, and they've spent time together and they know things about each other that like maybe the other doesn't even acknowledge or pick up on. But Yuju is like, listen, like my heart is capable of changing direction quickly, and like when I do, it's also flexible, I think she says. And she says, but it takes a while for you to know which way your heart is going. And once it goes down that road, like, it does not stop. And she's kind of referring to, like, you've had these feelings for Unchan. Like, I can't be sure that they are done because I know who you are as a person. Like, you are not like me in this way. Because she had her thing with DK. But she's basically saying, like, I know that I can be done with that and come back and, like, be good here. But I can't trust you because I know how you are, and I know that you are still going to have these feelings, you're going to hold on to them, or that you might even be lying to me now by saying that you're over them. And we don't know who's telling the truth, really. And Yuju brings up that she was always number one. Like, no matter, there were always women around Han Sung, and he wanted nothing to do with them, and she was always number one, and she got used to that. And how now that Unchan is like in this picture for him, she's like, that's changed, and she doesn't know how to deal with it, and like she's having her own feelings of jealousy and not being able to, I guess, cope with this relationship change. And Han Sung speaks up for himself by being like, once again, you've decided everything quickly without giving me a chance to like prove myself. Like, nothing actually happened between him and Unchan except that he developed feelings for her, and then like Unchan also developed feelings for him, and then nothing came of it. In the last exchange that they had, he was like, don't keep hanging on. Which, I mean, I wish he would have just said like, I'm not wavering at that moment with Yuju, but I don't know, I guess he maybe still had some stuff to work out.
That scene is a lot.
It's great because the idea that like knowing someone well enough to know how their heart works, and knowing yourself well enough to know what you can accept and what you can live with. And I don't think she's happy with the fact that she can't look past her jealousy or Han Sung's transgression. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, they do like each other, but this might be the thing that she can't overlook. This might be the thing that you can't just hand a wave and say, well, you know, you like each other, so what's the matter? And it's like, this would be the matter. Gosh.
Whew. Anyway, back to Coffee Prince. That's honestly what it feels like, is after cutting away from this, like, big, intense, very emotional scene for Han Sung and Yuju, we're kind of like, anyway, like, back to the cafe.
Definitely a whiplash moment.
Oh, man. Yeah. But we cut back to the cafe, and everyone is kind of, like, cleaning up because it's the end of the day. And we watch Mr. Hong kind of leave. He's, like, changed back into his comfy clothes, and he's like, bye, everyone! And they're like, oh, bye, Mr. Hong. And then Han Gyul follows after him pretty soon. But Mr. Hong is actually going to meet Mr. Koo and get some drinks with him.
And this begins the greatest B-plot that has ever been in an episode of television that I've seen so far.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it very much starts and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess Mr. Hong is, like, getting drinks with Mr. Koo. Interesting. But this is just the beginning.
So this is where the alternate title for this episode comes in.
Ooh, give it to me.
We are now watching almost an entirely different movie about Mr. Hong's night, which I have decided to call The Hongover Part 3.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so good. Oh my god. Wow. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow, the hungover. Oh my god. I love that so much. Okay. Let me write it down. Yes.
Ooh-wee.
So Mr. Hong has met Mr. Koo, and they're having some beer. They're having big mug of beer, and they are talking. They're
Mr.
talking
Koo
about
is
stuff.
opening up, and he's talking about like the blind dates that he went on. And Mr. Hong's like, "Oh, you moved past Mama. Are you enjoying your blind dates, whatever?" And he's like, "No, I hate it. This lady was all made up and she was tucked back in places." And I'm like, "Oh man, Mr. Koo likes it when they let it all hang out, huh?" Like,
one thing that we are learning from this show is, man, blind dates never work, apparently, because every time they've been featured in this series, they just end up horribly.
the blind date is like the death of the meet cute. And everybody knows to build a relationship, you need to have a strong foundation of meet cute.
You need to run into each other on the corner, and one of you needs to have been, like, in the middle of eating their breakfast that was just a piece of toast. And you need to accidentally land with your lips on each other, so it's like a kiss.
And Mr. Koo says, again, like, he literally talks about his... Well, he's a poet, so he abstracts it a little bit. And he's like, listen, the flow of a river can be blocked.
Metaphoring the heck out.
The path of an arrow can be changed. Like, the direction a human walks in can be altered. But my heart is only pointing in this one direction, and no matter what I do, I can't get my heart to face another direction. And Hong kind of looks at him and is like, huh. Like, he's finally seeing that, like, this isn't a casual feeling that he has towards Eun-chan's mom. This is, like, a deeper feeling that he feels like can't be altered or changed. And seeing that, Mr. Hong then goes over to Mama.
Yeah, so we have this short little scene with Mr. Hong and Mr. Koo, and it feels like it's something that's going to kind of be a one-off, as many of the scenes with the older characters that we have, like Eun-chan's mom and Mr. Koo, oftentimes it's kind of like a little one-off. But then, yeah, we cut straight away to a scene where Mr. Hong is walking up to Eun-chan's mom, and they're, like, chilling. She kind of, like, comes out with a little plate of snacks, and they're chilling outside. And they end up getting into a conversation about a very similar topic.
Yeah, they're kind of, like, casually talking about, like, oh, your restaurant's so successful, why don't you go buy the beer? And he's like, no, you're my friend, you buy me beer, that's how this works. And he kind of goes to bat for Mr. Koo, and he's like, you know, don't write him off. Like, he's not like pushing or like being like, you should give him a chance. He's like,
yeah, he's not like out here with his wingman abilities like on the forefront. They're kind of like underneath the table, and he's being like,
he's playing it close to the chest, and he's being like, because he's seen that maybe there's more there, and he's like, well, okay, maybe I should try and open her up to the possibility that there is something more there. And man, like, that was, it's interesting because he's acting like he's very drunk, but he's being very deliberate about his words. And I just thought this was like a really interesting continuation of the last scene, and like an expansion of this love triangle, because originally it was kind of like he was rivaling with Koo over Mama, but like he was very casually
yeah, that's how it felt.
Her. And now that he's seen that Mr. Koo is serious, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of take a step back, and I'm going to kind of be like, hey, well, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when this kind of, like, trio of characters was introduced as, like, you know, as like, a unit and not as separate characters, it did feel like it had that, like, oh, Mr. Hong is casually interested and Mr. Koo is, like, head over heels, like, into her. But then we do get a lot of, kind of scenes and lines from Mr. Hong that show that he is not necessarily interested in Eun-chan's mom in that way. Because I remember the scene where he kind of, like, even, like, calls her and is like, hey, I don't have feelings for you, and you don't have feelings for me, right? And, like, puts the phone up to Mr. Koo. And to me, this kind of scene feels less like him taking a step back and more like him kind of just realizing that Mr. Koo isn't this, like, silly man who just kind of, like, has a big crush and is being dumb about it. Like, he's someone who has truly developed feelings, and he kind of, like, sees the potential for happiness there. And not necessarily himself stepping back, but more just kind of wanting to see if, hopefully, that situation can work itself out.
Big agree, as we say.
Big agree!
And then they kind of also start talking about Unchan, because Mama is like, hey, how's things going at your cafe? Like, is the manager really mad at her? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of bad.
Yeah.
And Mama says Unchan, like, won't eat. And I was like, that's the biggest, reddest flag that ever there was. And she's like, yeah, she's going through heartbreak. And Mr. Hong says, Cake'll fix it. And I'm like, ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth? So then we kind of end this scene with Mr. Hong being like, well, you don't have any alcohol for me. There's no beer here, so I'm leaving. And he decides to walk off. And then the next scene we cut to is actually Hong Gyul's mom is visiting him at his apartment.
Looking much cleaner, by the way. I guess he got all the noodles away from his answering machine before Mama got there.
Yeah, Mom was like, I'm stopping by, and he was like, oh, shit, oh no, what am I gonna do?
She's making him noodles, and he's like, oh man, I can't wait to eat my mom's noodles. Do you want, try some, Mom, try some. And she says, I can't eat that. It'll go straight to my stomach if I eat this late. And that's when I went, where the hell does it go the rest of the time, Mom? Are there aliens in this show? Have we just confirmed my prediction from the end of the last episode? That's where food always goes.
Jaren takes out his, like, little, like, opera glasses, and he's, like, glaring at the screen, like, you have, like, the big, radar, like, listening really closely, being like, what was that? Did you just, are you an alien?
Rewind. Enhance. Looking for the zipper on the back of her neck.
Oh my god. So, I'll be honest, I'm sure that there was, like, an actual conversation going on in this scene, but I could not focus because the sound of the noodle, the, like, of the noodles was there throughout the entire scene, and I could not focus on anything
No, same.
else.
I wrote 3 minutes of grotesque noodle ASMR.
I just wrote this noodle sound is so distracting. Oh my god. However, I did catch, because there was kind of, like, talk about, not necessarily, like, strong talk about, like, birth mom and stuff, but there was kind of, like, a feeling in this scene about how, like, mom is the one who raised him, and so, like, she's kind of the real, the mom that he sees as his true parent, as opposed to the birth mom, who is just the one who kind of, like, brought him into this world. And that was kind of, like, a sweet notion that I did get from this scene, aside from the
Very true.
oh my god, I could not focus.
There's a great line where the mom is kind of prompted to articulate her feelings towards the birth mom, and she says, I'm very sorry that she didn't get to see, like, who you are and raise you and, like, the man that you've become, but I'm also very grateful that I've gotten to see it instead. And, like, that was legit pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Very good.
I was like, oh no, if only these noodles weren't being stirred right now, I would probably be crying.
And then that kind of prompts Hong Gyul to, like, have a sincere moment with her, where he's like, hey, I'm gonna say this, so, like, listen. He says, I think you're the only one in the world who has faith in me. Which, very sweet.
Yeah, that's right.
But I have no idea where he's getting that from. I feel like, as far as having faith in him, like, wasn't the mom so worried about his future that they set up, like, blind date marriage kind of stuff? And this whole coffee prince plot, like, that's not really demonstrating faith in your son's interest to be a Lego man.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like maybe we're missing some context here. Like, I wish we'd had a couple of more Han Gyul mom scenes before this.
But it doesn't so much matter, because then Hong shows up at Hong Gyul's place.
Yeah, guess who's here? Mr. Hong has concluded his next stop on his Hongover adventure, and he's here at Hong Gyul's apartment, and he's like, "You got any beer?"
It's the Hongover featuring Han Gyulifanakis, and
oh my.
And Hong just shows up
God.
and they go onto like Hangyul's balcony and he just kind of torments him a little bit. He's like, "Oh man, isn't it cool how sad you are right now? Like, oh, feel it."
Oh my god. And then he kind of like launches into this story that's like, yeah, you know, a girl ruined my life once. And he tells this story about how he was in love with a girl, and he describes her as like she was the best liar. Like he's like, oh, you know, I was in love with a girl and she was like amazing at lying. And he was like, anytime, you know, she would say she was doing one thing and she would always be doing something else. And like I would even give her money for things and she would use it on things that wasn't what I told her or wasn't what she told me she would be using it for. And he even ends the story by being like, and then, you know, even when she left, she told me that she was going to study abroad and I like gave her money for that. And I told her that I would wait for her. And then he's like, and she ended up marrying a different man a year later. And it, you know, initially you're like, damn, Mr. Hong, like, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where he talks about these things that have happened to him in the past, and he says them so bluntly that they feel like, I feel like I should be like, Mr. Hong, are you okay? But at the same time, he's saying them with this, like, big smile on his face and this sense of nostalgia that you can't help but be like, oh, he's already okay with this. Like, he's come to terms with this. Obviously, this hurt him in the past, but he is here now, and he can look back on it fondly.
Yeah, when you said it was a girl ruined my life once, I was immediately like, hold up, because this is the most romantic story that I have ever heard, because he's so lost in the sauce of his own memories while he's just kind of recounting this. And like he's like, yeah, she would tell me she's going to work and then like go dancing with friends, or she'd tell me she was going here and she'd be there, or tell me who she's with and she's with someone else. And like the way that he talks about it is so captivating because he sums it up best himself at the end of the story when he says, you know, Hangul's like, well, she lied to you, like, that's bad. And he's like, yes, but she must have liked me a lot to always tell me something other than the truth. Like, to try and spare my feelings at every opportunity. And I was like, damn. And he kind of, like, articulates the Mr. Hong thesis for himself in that relationship by being like, if I ever got angry, like, there was this trick I would do, and we never fought at all. Because whenever I would start to get angry, I would ask myself, Hong, can you live without her? And his anger would melt away because he couldn't. And that's the ultimate extension of their, well, if you two like each other, then what's wrong theory. Because if you can't live without this
literally
person,
all of that, like, moments that it's been mentioned before, I feel like we're all kind of building up to this moment.
Exactly.
Because everyone has kind of been saying it, but I do feel like the biggest pusher of that mentality was Mr. Hong, because all throughout this entire show, he has been saying that from the beginning. He's been saying, like, it'll be fine. Like, don't you two like each other? I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, he's kind of been here in this mindset of having already been through such an experience himself and kind of having that experience under his belt. He kind of, like, sees what's happening in front of him, and he's kind of all along been like, nothing needs to be as big of a deal as you're making it out to be.
yes.
And it's very interesting to look at it that way, because as a viewer of a show like this, like, it's really easy to think that. And I imagine as well, as someone who has already been through the experience and is now kind of like an outsider looking in, or someone who's looking back being like, oh, like, why can't I just feel this way? But at the same time, it's when you're involved in the situation, that's a whole different perspective. So it feels, personally as a viewer, it feels very good to have this character who is sitting there kind of like saying exactly how it feels to be somebody watching everything unfold. But at the same time, I don't think I would have it any other way than how the show has played out, because no matter how many times somebody who has experience tells you, like, hey, this is how it is and this is how it can be, and like, this is, you know, like something that you should consider. It's never easy to just let yourself fall into that and to not be in the moment of feeling those feelings and to not essentially have to experience the realization of that for yourself. Oh man, yeah, Mr. Hong quickly climbing the ranks of like best characters. Like he's kind of getting close to sweeper level, I gotta say.
Then Hong Gyul does the very kid thing of asking the grown older person, so I should just let it go? Like asking him, like, what should I do? And Hong's response is, don't if you don't want to, which is my new motto for life. Don't if you don't want to. And
Mr. Hong has also had this attitude all throughout this series too. Like it feels kind of good for it to see this conversation and to see his attitude and his view on life like kind of coming to a head here with the whole situation with Han Gyul and Un-Chan. Because throughout the series, every time that something has happened, he's been like, hey, like, listen, if you don't want to do it, you don't gotta do it. Or like, if like this isn't something new for him, which I kind of like. Having this moment in the series feels so rewarding just because like you've seen it this whole time and now it's kind of like this is like the big kind of like it's
definitely I feel like when they were writing this show or coming up with the script at a very early stage, when they started with the character of Mr. Hong, they built it around these concepts that he's articulating to Hong Gyul now. This character who views love as if you don't want to, you don't have to, and if you like somebody, be with them. And then they built everything else about him around that. And so us seeing all that other dressing and then coming around the corner and getting to this like core of his character is immensely satisfying. And he has a lot to offer the people who are going through these problems in the show. It's very well designed.
Yeah, I feel like that's big agree. Oh man.
Speaking of well designed, we cut back to Robo Ko and Chan cry in bed.
That's right. Oh man, yeah, Un-Chan is talking to Robo Un-Chan and she's just like crying and
she's like a parrot. She's just like saying things that Han Gyul has like said to her. So she's like sitting there like sobbing, being like man or alien, and then she kisses the robot. And then she says, I hate you, I hate you. And then I miss you, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you. And I was like, there are twice as many I miss yous as I hate yous. So the ratio of her emotions is plain to see.
Ah, yeah. We're weighing in heavier on the I miss you side, which is a good sign.
Oh, it's so sad, though, to watch somebody cry with a toy. I love, like, characters who have affection for inanimate objects, especially, like, toys. I'm big into that animism shit.
I'm big into Un-Chan, just in general. I love her. I'm a big fan.
You're a big Chan fan.
I'm a big Chan fan. Oh my god, I love Un-Chan, which is why this episode is so hard for me.
It is very hard being a Chanatic sometimes.
Man, every once in a while I think about leaving the Un-Chan fandom, but I just can't bring myself to. I love her so much.
Once you're in the Chandom, you can't leave.
Yeah, it's scary. You can't. There's no escaping.
And we go back to Coffee Prince, presumably like the next morning.
Cut back to Coffee Prince.
And so he is kind of being a dick, maybe a little bit.
It's, yeah, kind of, maybe?
He's kind of like, yada yada, it was fun to watch though, huh?
Oh my god, yeah, he's like, it was fun for me.
And I'm like, are you trying to be Mr. Hong right now? Because that's not a very Hong thing to do.
It is a very Sun Gi thing to do, though, so I don't know.
You're right.
Like, anyway, honestly, now every time we get to this, like, little back cubby with the sink that's, like, Sun Gi's little, like, waffle making station, I just get nervous, because this seems to be the place where everything always goes down.
I am being conditioned to dread it, yes.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh no, what's gonna happen this time?
So what happens this time on Coffee Prince is Han Gyul walks in and he's kind of like ready to. He's got like a killer line that looks like he's been practicing, and he's like,
Yes.
"Huh? So are you a hyung or an oppa now?" To Sungi.
Oh my god.
And Sungi is like, "I do not care. I don't care. It does not matter."
Sungi is like, I literally give zero shits to any rhetoric that you are trying to push right now. It does not matter. Oh my, like, Sungi is kind of like me a little bit.
Yes.
How I'm feeling, and it's good to have him there, because, you know what? Sungi says two big things. He says, well, it was fun to watch, which, yeah, I did have a lot of fun watching up until
he's
now.
the viewer.
And two, he says, it does not matter. And I'm like, you're right, Sungi. It does not matter.
And Han Gyul's sick burn backfired on him, so now he goes, "How dare you!"
Yeah, we love to fight next to this sink. This sink is like the fighting sink. And poor Un-chan is just kind of like, great.
Speaking of fight, like, there was, God, this scene, there was one thing that just pushed me over the edge, and I went into like a lunatic rampage on my page.
Oh no!
And for a brief second before Han Gyul does like the hyung and oppa thing, you see Sungi is cutting a fruit to put on the waffle. And so I look at it and I go, okay, well, this fruit is red, maybe a strawberry. And then we cut back to that fruit, and he transfers a whole sliced tomato raw onto a waffle, and I lost it. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? This is...
Wow.
It's technically a fruit, but, like, you can't put a tomato on a waffle. It's
you can't
raw.
put a tomato on a waffle. You can't.
It's not right. It's like drinking ice cream with soda. Like, who... Did
Did
they not have the right fruit prop? Did it take too many takes and they had to, like, oh, well, we've got this tomato. Nobody will notice. I noticed. I care.
Oh my god. You bait and switched me so bad, you just did. Oh my god.
I'm livid because okay.
I mean, like, okay, listen. There's a part of me that's tempted to be like, hey, it's another, like, cuisine, like, you don't know. But also, yeah, I cannot imagine eating raw tomato on a waffle. It sounds kind of I don't like raw tomato, like, in the first place. Like, I'm not a big,
I hate it.
like, sliced or, like,
Gross.
diced tomato. Like, my tomato needs to be pureed and nothing less.
It needs to be fried and green.
Ooh. Now, I do like fried green tomatoes. But this is all beside the point.
No, I'm still on this. 1 second. Listen.
Okay.
Next time I go grocery shopping, I am gonna make waffles, and I'm going to cut up a whole tomato, beefsteak tomato. I don't care. I'll rewatch the footage and see if I can narrow down the kind of tomato that it is.
Yeah, are you sure that it's only tomato and that there's not any other, like, savory things on the waffle?
Oh, no.
Because savory waffles are a thing.
I frame by framed it. It's not even artfully presented. It's cut into slices, stacked on top of itself, so it retains the shape of a whole tomato. And
oh my god.
the only part that's not in use is the top that he cuts off so it has a flat base to sit on. And I'm gonna eat this tomato waffle if it kills me.
Oh my god. Well, good luck. I'm not eating no waffle tomato. I'm not even gonna chance it. I'm just gonna trust the series that somebody wanted that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it as it is.
Listen.
But if you were going on this adventure, I guess, like, record it at the very least.
Oh, totally. They know something that I don't. Because this production team has too much love and care put into this show to just lazily cut up a tomato and stick it on a waffle.
Oh god.
Whew. Alright, I'm good.
Anyway, then something that's, like, way less important to the plot than that happens. I guess, like, Han Gyul and Un-chan talk or something. I don't know. It seems like something happened between them, but I'm not really sure because I don't really think it's as relevant to the story.
No, I totally forgot that wasn't even the end of that scene.
I literally, when you were like, this made me so mad, I was like, oh, we're getting, like, big emotions into this part. And then it was about a tomato on a waffle, and I was like, what is happening? Yeah, this scene was very tense. I did write down at this point, oh my god, just because there's one lie doesn't mean that it was all a lie. Because that's also a big thing in, like, secret, like, plots, where as soon as the person finds out that, like, they were lied to about one, you know, relatively, like, big thing, they tend to kind of be like, oh, so, like, everything else that has happened thus far has all kind of been one big ruse and it's one big pretend. And it's like, no, I mean, like, I get it, like, you're mad and emotional right now, but also, like, I don't know, you've had a day to sleep on it. Like, come on, we can't still be under the impression that, like, this was one big Hangul haha joke and that, like, we got him, boys. We got him to say I like you to a boy. Like, come on, like, we cannot. Oh my god. There's a lot of yelling. It's very tense.
He says, everyone's on your side here. Leave. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it takes a second to re-examine. If everybody is on her side, maybe it's you who needs to chill.
Maybe, just maybe, just maybe, just maybe.
No, it must be everyone else who is wrong.
Hello, everyone. This is Kara from the editing realm of Just Kiss Already. I'm here to let you know that this last section of the episode comes with a content warning. There will be mentions of sexual assault, as well as discussion of its use as a trope in romance media. So if you want to skip this section, you can go ahead and jump to 2 hours, 28 minutes, and 13 seconds for our closing jokes, or just end the episode here. Thank you guys so much for listening, and stay safe out there. Ugh, and then we get to what is, quite possibly one of my least favorite things that happens in definitely this episode, but also maybe in this show, which is this, like, emotions are really high and they're arguing, and it's kind of under the pretense of this, like, you know, do you even actually, like, care about me? Like, what else did you lie about? Blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone's on your side. And then Hangul, for some reason, decides that the best thing to do is to, like, aggressively shove Unchan up against this, like, fridge or whatever is there and, like, kiss her. And it's so uncomfortable to watch because it's, like, you can hear, like, Unchan, like, struggling and being, like making these, like, noises like she's trying to get away from the situation, and it's just, like, so painful.
I thought she, like, scratched his face at one point. Like, it was...
Maybe. I feel like, I mean, like, if the intended effect was to make me extremely uncomfortable, then you got it, because that scene is just, like, so awful to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty much a sexual assault, because...
You know, ugh.
We hate to see it.
Yeah.
And then he follows it up with, like, the worst line. He says, like, the kiss was better as a guy. And it's like, maybe
God.
because that was, like, a consenting good I love you kiss, and not a, hey, I'm going to smack your head against the back of a fridge, and then...
Yeah, this weird, like, I'm angrily kissing you to prove a point? I don't know.
What an asshole. God.
Yeah, it's very much something that upon rewatching, I feel like every time I get to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this part that I tried to erase from my brain because I really love the rest of the show.
Yeah. Man.
This was also another point where they're back in this little, like, alcove, like, having a little conversation, and I'm like, are there customers in this cafe right
Hello?
now? Could somebody potentially maybe, like, be walking past to go to the bathroom and turn and be like, oh my god.
This poor boy is being assaulted.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's very painful. Hangul angrily walks away, and we are left on this screenshot of Unchan just kind of, like, sinking to the ground and, like,
yeah,
being sad.
When this episode ended, it went, like, immediately into next episode preview, and I was just shook for, like, a second.
Yeah.
I was like,
ugh, god. Yikes. Anyway, that's episode 11!
Yay, in the bag.
Oh, God. Whew. So, episode 11. How you feeling, Jaren?
I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling like this is the bleakest it's ever been.
Yeah.
'Cause, like...
It really does, like, suck to just... Like, I feel like the beginning of this episode started out on a really, really high note. And then we were still in Cute Town for a little bit, but then we saw what was about to unfold. Like, they were like, hey, basically telling us, like, this is kind of going to happen. Just with, like, the way that everyone's attitude was and just the way that it feels. And then it feels like it almost happens too fast because we're like, we want to be back in Cute Town. And then the rest of the episode is just kind of like a constant, like, you know that what's happening in the back of your mind. So even the moments that are more lighthearted are kind of like shadowed by this thing that has happened and that we know is going on.
Yeah, like they pull the trigger this episode and it all happens like at once. Ugh. Man. I'm having trouble just sort of summarizing my thoughts on this episode because it's a real kick in the pants for sure.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was kind of gonna like turn in my get out of jail free card after you gave your feelings and be like, yeah, I don't really know how to talk about mine, but I've already seen it, so it's the end of the
All right, I'll give it my Kentucky Fried Best real quick.
All right, you don't have to. If you would like, I can give you a get out of jail free card.
No,
and we can both get out of jail.
I'll save mine.
Oh
no. Okay, so episode 11 of Coffee Prince is it's basically a morality play where you're told your whole life that you shouldn't lie and you should be honest and you should do the right thing. And this is what happens when you stack all those bricks towards something with another person, like be it a partner or like somebody that you go into business with. And like once you remove all those lies that were kind of supporting everything, it really does just like topple in an instant. And the escalation that brought to where all the problems in the past between Hongil and Unchan feel like they could have been solved with talking and they were misunderstandings. It's now progressed to Hongil has, like, violently assaulted the main character. And even if he resolves his feelings towards the lie in a good way, and even if Unchan resolves her feelings towards his reaction, it's at that point where you have to question, is it healthy if either of them is willing to look past that? Because, like they say, if you love someone, you should be with them. But if somebody treats you that way in a fit of rage, it might be one of those things that you can't overlook, like with Hansung and Yuju. That's my piece. Man.
It was a good one. Thank you. Yeah, I think, you know what, I'm gonna take my get out of jail free card out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get in jail.
Join me.
I'm all right. Here I am, swinging the door open and then closing it behind me and like kicking the key over. I mean, honestly, as tough as watching this episode is, and as like negative as the emotions that it brings me, I do think that at the end of the day, like it's kind of like, I think one of the reasons that I like rewatching things so much is because it gives me all of the, like, even though I've seen this show like quite a few times, still when I watch this part, I feel all those same emotions. And maybe they're not exactly the same. Because, you know, I've grown up and I'm a different person now or whatever. Or also I just have a new context on the show having seen it before. But the fact that it's still able to bring those emotions out of me and that I'm still able to feel that same way that I did when I first saw this and was experiencing it for the first time, just like you are now, it's, I don't know, I can't really say, like, it's nice, because no, it's not like a nice feeling, but I like the fact that media is able to do that. I like the fact that it's able to bring those emotions out of me. And I like the fact that I can watch something again and still get that same feeling out of it. in regard to what we've kind of just witnessed and what feels like the worst part of this show, as somebody who is not a stranger to this genre of media being like romantic drama / comedy kind of content, I mean, I have to remind myself that this is a product of its time, because this is a show from 2007, and I definitely do not think that if Coffee Prince were made today, that a scene like this would have made the cut. But this kind of scene and this kind of like peak, I guess, of emotions in a way that is kind of so like gross but like raw in a way, is not something that is like this happens. This is a part of this kind of genre, and it's a part of its kind of like a growth. Like, I have read many other stories and seen other shows and watched movies and stuff that have an instance like this, where they have this kind of like spike of emotion and it manifests itself in such a pretty much like a sexual assault kind of way. And I mean, unfortunately, like, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, but it's a product of its time and it's like whatever, because no, it's not good. And I'm glad that this genre has kind of developed out of that, because I don't see that anymore. Or at least I hope I don't. I haven't seen everything in the world, but for the most part, it seems to be something that has died down as we have kind of realized that, hey, that's not okay, and maybe we shouldn't be putting that in our media that we're using as, like, here's what romance is. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. But I do definitely think that because of its heavy presence in this genre and because of my involvement in that genre, I've kind of been desensitized to seeing it. But at the same time, I don't think that means that I view it as, like, less bad. Like, I still see that, and it still makes me uncomfortable, and it still makes me feel sad. But at the same time, I'm kind of able to, like, view it with that lens of, like, this is something that I feel like I, as a person, have grown past seeing and being like, whoa, is this what, like, romance is? And also that I feel like media in general has hopefully been able to surpass. Hopefully. I mean, you know, like I said, I haven't seen all the media in the world, and it's possible that there are still series that are doing stuff like this as kind of like that emotional peak of the anger. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there, that, like, this isn't, not to be like, it's not just Coffee Prince, like, other people do it too, and not that it makes it okay, but also just kind of recognize that, like, this, as we delve into, like, romantic media from, you know, years past, we may encounter this kind of stuff again, and that just kind of recognizing that it's there, and recognizing that it's not okay, but also not faulting the series and being like, oh, this moment makes this series bad, because I don't want that to happen, because I still do look at Coffee Prince as something that, a story that overall I still really do like, and a piece of work that I, you know, respect, and that I view with, like, a nostalgic kind of, like, I do want to watch it again. Even though that this scene is there and this scene is bad, I still want to watch this show again. And I think there are a lot of people that can relate to that feeling, like, not wanting something that is good to be tainted by, like, one scene. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to, like, express that feeling and kind of, like, recognize that, yeah, that's a thing, and unfortunately it's there, and here we are.
I think that's very valid and very measured approach to consuming media like this.
Yeah. Thank you. Also, yeah, just, like, you know, just to put it out, because I know there are other people like me who probably grew up on this kind of, like, romance media and, like, shoujo manga and stuff, and it's an interesting thing to kind of, like, once you realize that those scenes and that kind of stuff isn't cool, being like, does that mean this entire genre isn't cool? And no, it doesn't. But it's important to recognize it.
If this show can survive the character of Han Sung, then it can survive episode 11.
You know what? I think Coffee Prince survived episode 11, and I think we survived episode 11,
We
too.
did.
Whew. Man. I guess that's all we've got for you. I guess we've kind of run out.
Yeah, you've heard it here first. Next time, episode 12, coming off the shelf.
Ooh, pretty good. Oh, I had one in my mind earlier. I don't remember what it was, though. Oh, well. Episode 12, get ready to delve.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Episode 12 is coming straight from the pelvis.
Oh no! Oh, man. I guess we better be ready for episode 12-y? I forced that one. I just wanted to say it.
I love it.
Thank you. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Good luck with your own emotions in watching Coffee Prince, but know that we're right there with you.
Yes, if you need emotional support, please call the Coffee Prince helpline to get through episode 11 together.
Yes. we're all just trying to get through episode 11 together. Whew. All right. Bye, y'all. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.